Welcome back to the channel. This is Trendy Storm and you are watching first part of What If Juubi Naruto accidentally travels to parallel world. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe to the channel. Now wasting no more time, let's start the story.
Akatsuki Base hidden he and Sasuke were carrying out the ceremony to seal the last Biju, Kyuubi, into the seal and revive the Juubi so Madara could become its host and rule the world after the Kages and the elemental nations lost the battle against the fully revived Madara Uchiha. 9 ethereal dragons emerged from the demon statue Gedo Mazo and made their way to Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze's unconscious form. Naruto floats into the air after they form into an orb and encircle the blonde's body. Sasuke also smiles evilly, and Madara smirks behind his mask. "Soon I shall have the power of the Juubi and the world will be mine," says Madara. The prick chuckles evilly and says, "In the end, Dobi, you have failed. Now the world belongs to the Uchiha clan as it should have in the beginning." The demon statue began to tremble and act out as they initiated the process. Madara and Sasuke were shocked when the chakra emanating from the dragon turned white and began to reverse itself. The founder of Konoha screamed, "WH! What's going on here?" as Sasuke continued to stare in disbelief at the scene. Madara saw a smirk on the blonde's face and narrowed his Sharingan eye at him. "Fool," was the word he saw Naruto mouth with his lips, and Madara's eyes widened in horror as he realized what he was saying. He screamed in terror, "No, he couldn't have." Sasuke stopped the jutsu, as Sasuke gave him a crazy look. His ancestor interrupted him, unleashing a torrent of murderous intent on his lone surviving relative. "Why? We are close to obtaining the ultimate power, Madara, so why are you?" he asked. Madara yelled, "Don't be stupid. He's placed a powerful Fuinjutsu on himself that'll reverse the effects of the sealing. We must stop it," until the chakra reversal began to accelerate until a black vortex formed around the seal on his stomach, entangling the chakra of the other 8 tailed beasts. When Madara realizes what's happening, his eyes enlarge even more. A child was the only one who stopped all of his planning and effort over the years to use the power of the original Biju and his ancestors to take control of the world. He gritted his teeth in rage, and his eyes glowed with rage and anger. No, my plans. That damned Uzumaki has ruined my plans." He screams and attempts to use his chakra to cancel the jutsu, but it fails, so he swears. He shouts, "Sasuke, help me stop the jutsu," and the teenager nods. He tries to cancel the jutsu by adding his chakra, but it doesn't work and something else occurs instead. His hands are stretched, fading away, and drawn toward the vortex, he observes. As Sasuke is pulled into the seal, his eyes widen in horror as the wind blowing toward the vortex gets stronger. He tries to use his chakra to pull himself away, but it draws him in more quickly. "WH! What's going on? I'm being drawn into the vortex," he exclaims. "No, this can't be happening. This can't be happening. Damn you, Dobi. Damn you. ARRRGGHHHH. As his head and the rest of his body stretch out and are drawn into the vortex, he lets out a cry. When Madara saw this, he experienced the same thing. As this was going on, Naruto began to laugh and then chuckle. "Damn you Hashirama and your Uzumaki brethren. Damn you Minato Namikaze and your family for ruining my ambitions. I will not die like this. I am immortal. I'm an Uchiha. I am a good." He screamed in denial as he was drawn into the vortex while the multicolored chakra continued to enter the vortex on Naruto's stomach. He trembled in rage and glared at the blonde with all the hatred he could muster. The mindscape of Naruto, when he opened his eyes, he saw the blood-red walls he had seen before, but inside the cage was a house with wild flowers and grass. It had 2 stories and plenty of space, but it wasn't as large as a mansion. He glanced around and saw foxes yipping in a lake, river, and waterfall behind the house. At this, he shook his head and grinned. He waited for the redhead to leave the red house and called out, "Hitomi-chan?" His eyes widened at the sight of the door opening. A woman with crimson hair left the house without shoes, exposing her feet to the public eye. They wriggled as they walked through the green grass, her toenails painted blood red. His gaze swept over her body, focusing on her svelte, smooth legs as they scampered up her body and hid beneath a miniskirt. She wore a red-orange skirt that reached her voluptuous waist. Her black shirt, which featured a red 9-tailed fox, was the ideal fit for her hourglass figure and accentuated her bust, which was a good size without being overly large. She strolled over to him, her arms swinging at her sides, her nails painted red and black. He can plainly see the slender muscles that accentuated her feminine features. His gaze moved from her torso to her delicate, pale neck and her ivory skin, which was so soft and light that you wanted to kiss it. His expression changed from joy to sadness and sorrow as she walked up to the blonde and he met her ruby-red slit eyes. "Hitomi. Chan-I," he begins to say, but she stops him with a finger on his lips while grinning piteously at the young sage. "I know Naruto-kun, but it is the only way. If there was another way I would have found it, but sadly, I'll end up being one with the other Biju also, and you will be the new Juubi in a way because you'll have its power. You've also gained both Madara's and Sasuke's Sharingans as well as their abilities when you absorbed their souls into yours. You also have the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, and the DNA of the Uchiha clan is now a part of you. Once you absorb the other 8 and then me, I'll be no more." She concludes and looks at the ground. Notices that droplets are falling. When she looks up, she notices that Naruto's shoulders are trembling and tears are streaming down his face in grief and rage. Although seeing her lover in such a state and knowing that this had happened to him deeply wounded her, it was necessary to take this action or the world would have ended forever under Madara's control. Damn it, this isn't fair. First my family, then my friends, my godfather and godmother, and now you. Why Kami? Why do you always take away those I love?" He gasps with grief. He sobbed into Hitomi's shoulder as she pulled him into an embrace, stroking his hair and rubbing his back. She began to fade, and Naruto's eyes widened in fear as he gazed at her while more tears streamed down his cheeks. "I know Naru-kun, I know. Life can be cruel to even those who don't deserve it. I'm sorry. I want you to know that I love you too." And she gave him a smile as tears streamed from her eyes. She disappears into a shower of glitter and says, "Goodbye." The house, the forest, and everything else disappear, leaving Naruto in a black emptiness, and he collapses to his knees. Naruto's hair casts a shadow over his eyes as he gazes into the darkness. Then he clenches his fists until blood drips through his fingers and his knuckles pop. Then, with tears streaming down his face, he pulls his head back and screams in agony. Beyond his thoughts, he wiped tears from his eyes and whispered, "Goodbye Hitomi-chan," as he continued to absorb the remaining chakra. Then, as Naruto hit the ground and struck the demon statue with a thud, it turned to sand and vanished. After that, he opens his blue eyes with a cerulean slit and gazes up at the pitch black cavern. He then slowly stands up, but as a black aura envelops his body, he feels excruciating pain in his eyes and clutches his face before rolling onto his knees and beginning to shake. Then, as it flares around the quivering cave, it changes from black to rainbow. After that, he slams his fist into the ground, making a tiny crater. He repeats the action several times, each time making the crater larger. After that, he throws his head back and yells so loudly that it breaks the earth. A huge pillar of multicolored chakra emerges from his body and rips through the cave. It causes the cloudy sky to gradually clear as it shoots up into it. Sweat beading from his face, he falls and pants heavily. Then he opens his eyes and slowly stands up. They had a 6-bladed windmill shuriken and were now red, but inside the shuriken was a tiny hexagonal star. Naruto approaches a small pond and looks down at it, observing the reflection of his eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. "Well Madara. Teme, I guess I have to thank you and Sasuke for these eyes." Then he feels the skills of their Sharingan and the knowledge of Madara and Sasuke passing through his mind. He then focuses his gaze and is distorted as he emerges from the cave. A dark green Junin flak jacket, black cargo pants, and the Yondaime's cape appear on a hilltop, followed by a pair of black Anbu sandals. Then a spiky, wild blonde hair and a masculine face emerge. Naruto sighs sorrowfully as he stands atop the hill and surveys the ruined and demolished surroundings. His words, "If only I knew a way to prevent this from happening," are followed by a smirk as he realizes something. He speaks a single word while maintaining eye contact. He says, "Kamui." A vortex the size of a human emerges in front of him, and the sky becomes rippled. The vortex vanishes as he plunges into it. Dimensional vortex. Naruto's eyes were squinting from the flashes as he flew through the multicolored lights and ripples. After that, Naruto begins to feel strange, and his body begins to twitch and turn before becoming wavy, as though it were changing. Then he sees a flash of white light, and it consumes him, turning everything else white and causing Naruto to black out. He hears a young, feminine voice after a while of being out. "Aniki, Aniki," the voice cries. When a body leaps on Naruto's torso, he grunts. "Aniki, wake up!" It cried once more. After that, Naruto slowly opens his eyes, initially causing his vision to become blurry. He could hardly make out the face, but he could see red hair. As his vision improves, he spots the face of a girl who appears to be 6 years old. Her hair was red and stopped at her back, but her eyes were the same shade of blue as his. She was dressed in black pants and a red shirt. The redhead raises her eyebrows as Naruto blinks at her for a long time. Naruto screamed in her face as she asked, "Aniki?" And she jumped off his waist, falling off the bed and hitting her head on the floor. Naruto leaps to his feet and scans the area frantically. When he realizes he's in a big room rather than that dirty apartment, he screams, "Who? What? Where the heck am I?" He then gasps as he looks at his hands, leaps off the bed, hits the floor, and rushes to a mirror that was on a dresser. His eyes almost pop out of his head as he looks at himself. The redhead gets up, rubbing her head in agony, and glares at her brother. "Aniki, what's your problem?" He was 6 years old again, but this time he looked like his father. "You did that, but why?" When Naruto turns around and sees the redhead approaching him, she stops and crosses her arms while gazing at her brother. "I demand," she says. Once more, Naruto looks at her and gestures with his finger. Who are you?" The girl gives him a startled look as he asks, "Who am I, and what do you mean?" "I'm Shinku, your twin," she shouted at him as Naruto's mouth fell open. He thought, "What? I have a sister, a twin sister, but how?" as Shinku simply flushed at him. "You baka, how could you have forgotten that we are siblings?" She was curious, so Naruto rubbed the back of his head in embarrassment, decided to act differently, and stopped thinking about it. "Hey, sorry I didn't recognize you Imoudo, I'm still waking up from my nap." He lied, but he was sweating inwardly as Shinku gave him a suspicious look before shrugging. Then they heard the downstairs door slam open, and the two ran down the hall to see Kushina enter the house with a furious expression on her face. She was wearing a green Jonin flak jacket and a red and black ninja outfit, and her long red hair was tied in a ponytail. Her mother was alive during this time, and Naruto couldn't help but smile when he saw her. Shinku arrived downstairs first, followed by Naruto. Kushina took off her sword and sat on a black couch, massaging her face and muttering about those council bastards and Hiruzen not having the courage to deal with them. Since Minato's death, when Kushina became the leader of the Namikaze and Uzumaki clan, the Elder Council and civilians have been urging her to turn the boy over to be put to death or turned into a weapon, but today they went too far. In order to revive the two clans, for the good of the village, the elders and civilians demanded that Kushina have her son and daughter become breeding factories when they turn 15 years old. At that point, Kushina killed 4 civilians with her sword and, after beating Danzo to within an inch of his life, tore off her headband and threw it at Hiruzen, declaring that she was quitting, retiring from the ranks, and taking her children, everything Minato left to her and their children, as well as everything her clan had built out of the village. When Hiruzen and the clan council attempted to reason with her, she told them to get lost and walked away, but not before threatening to cut half of the ninja population if Sarutobi even considered stopping her. She then felt 2 tugs on her pant legs and noticed Naruto and Shinku staring at her, so she grinned and ruffled their heads. "Ka-san, are you okay?" Naruto questioned his mom. She gives them both a tender smile and says, "Hey, you two, go to your rooms and pack your things." She said, "We're leaving Konoha," and both Shinku's and Naruto's eyes widened. "Ka-san, why?" Kushina sighs as Naruto asks. "Go on, because you two are no longer safe here." They nod when she says, "Your godfather will be here soon." Naruto was initially perplexed but later understood that this timeline was different from the first, so he and Shinku went upstairs to gather their belongings. After 3 hours now that the house was empty, Kushina was carrying 3 large scrolls, 1 blue, 1 red, and 1 black, on her back. Naruto and Shinku were both wearing the same outfit and carrying their packs, and as they left the compound gates, a puff of smoke appeared, and Inu, Ukami, Habi, and Neko emerged wearing their Anbu masks. When Inu waves his hand in front of her, Kushina squints and looks at them while grabbing for her sword. Wait, Kushina. Sama. It was not the Hokage who sent us. The other 3 nod as he responds, and after a moment of staring, Kushina takes her hand off her sword, causing them to exhale in relief. "So, what brought the 4 of you here? May I ask why, Kakashi?" Kushina asks, and Kakashi takes off his Inu mask before responding, "We want to leave with you Kushina." "Sama." She gives him a startled look. The copy nin sighs when Kushina asks, "Since my parents passed away, you and Minato-sensei have been like a mother and father to me, Kushina. I consider Naruto and Shinku to be my Otuto and Imoudo." He says, "I swear to sensei that if something were to happen to him or you, I would take care of them. If I have to go missing to ensure their safety, I will." Kushina turns to face Ukami, who nods and takes off her mask to reveal Rin's face. As Neko and Hubby took off their masks to reveal Yugo and Anko, Rin remarked, "Same here, Kushina, Sama. And why are you two interested in joining? To be honest, sensei, I am also tired of how the villagers in Konoha treat Naruto-kun, and I don't wish to protect a village that would dishonor the dying wish of the man who saved us from absolute destruction," Kushina asks her former students. After giving them a long look, Kushina smiles and says, "You already know my reasons, sensei." Anko also speaks up and rubs her left shoulder blade. "All right, you can come along, but where is your gear?" "I have them sealed up in Pakun and the pack took them back to the summoning realm," he responds, grinning at her question. "All right, let's leave." They nod as Kakashi picks up Naruto and puts him on his shoulders, and Rin does the same with Shinku. "Jiraiya is waiting for us at the west gate," she said. They escape the west gate and start running along the path, but then a puff of smoke appears and a horse-sized, black and red toad appears on the path. They all stop when they see the frog, and Kushina smiles. "About time you showed up, Jiraiya," she says, and a man with long, wild, spiky hair appears on the toad's head, grinning. Well, if it isn't Kushina and her gakis. Being referred to as a brat causes Naruto's eye to twitch, but a smirk soon follows. He exclaims, "Hey Arrow Senin," which causes Jiraiya to fall off the toad and causes the four former Anbu to gasp. Shinku was laughing and pointing a finger at her godfather, who stood up with a furious look on his face, while Kushina had to suppress a laugh. He screams, "Don't call me that in public," and Naruto just smiles. Jiraiya relaxes and turns to face the other four. Kushina shrugs when he asks, "Hey Kushina, why are they with you?" "They wanted to join me, now we need to just find a village." Iwa is definitely out of the question and Suna is allied with Konoha. Kiri is still in the middle of a war and the minor countries aren't strong enough to handle Konoha right now. "So my only option is Kumo. What do you think, Jiraiya?" Kushina inquires and Jiraiya rashes his. "I say Kumo is our best option. They are neutral to Konoha and they also have two Biju container like Naruto, but the thing is that they treat them like guardians instead of pariahs. They also happen to be related to the Raikage, with one being his younger brother and the other his niece. I believe the girl is the container of the Nibi no Nekomata and his brother contains the Hachibi no Oshi." He responds and her eyes widen in disbelief. Yugo pulls out her ninjutsu and disappears, shocking everyone. Two slashes and screams are heard, and she reappears with a bloody sword in her hand, wiping the blood away. "I see. Well, Kumo it is. Now let's go. I don't want to stay here and wait for that war hawk to send his drones after us." With a curse, Kushina responds, "We have to get out of here and fast." She yells, "You four, get Naruto and Shinku out of here," and they shunshin away, nodding. 20 root ninja with their blades drawn encircle Kushina and Jiraiya as the toad scatters and she draws her O-katana. The leader demands, "Where is the demon brat and the girl?" but quickly regrets it when Jiraiya cracks his knuckles and Kushina's face breaks into a murderous grin. "Is that crippled old fool serious? Sending only 20 of you to deal with us? I'm insulted," he was upset. Before charging at the soon.to.be. Dead Root Anbu, the redhead declares, "I'm going to enjoy carving you fools up." The boundary between Kaminari no Kuni and Hai no Kuni. At the border, Kakashi, Rin, Anko, Yugo, Naruto, and Shinku were anticipating Kushina and Jiraiya. Shinku was dozing on her brother's lap while the twins sat beneath a tree. Naruto was in his mindscape, his head resting on the tree, his eyes closed. The mindscape now, Naruto was exactly the same as he had been in the future. As he approached the cage, he felt a strong aura emanating from the opposite side. At that moment, the figure growled and a pair of long, white, sharp teeth appeared on the other side of the large red slit eyes. Kyuubi no Yoko roared, "You! What are you doing here, Yandaime?" as the whole place shook violently. Before a tiny smile appeared on his face, Naruto just stood there and stared at the vixen. "Sorry to disappoint you, Hitomi-chan, but I am not my father." Naruto responds. The fact that her vessel was standing in front of her rather than Minato Namikaze, the man who sealed her away like Hashirama and Mito, caused her eyes to widen in shock. What shocked her even more was that he knew her name because no one other than her creator, father figure had ever called her that. Before her entire body glows and she transforms into her hybrid form, she briefly narrows her eyes in suspicion. Naruto approaches the cage and peers into her slitted eyes, which are ruby red. "Care to tell me how you know my name, my dear vessel?" she asked. With a broad smile, Naruto rolled up his right sleeve. Hitomi saw a spiral emerge around his palm and a sequence of intricate seals form around his forearm and into his hand's palm. He grabs the paper with the seal on it, tears it off, exposing the gate, and then lifts his shirt to reveal the Shikifuin design on his stomach. He wraps his hand around his torso and twists it counterclockwise as blue chakra flames form on the tips of his fingers. The lock clicks and gradually unlocks until the gates separate and open. Unaware that Naruto was reaching out and placing his hand on her face, the vixen watched in disbelief as her vessel released her from her seal. She tensed at the touch but relaxed and purred when he stroked her right ear. He feels her release a lot of ki in his mind as he says, to put it simply, Hitome-chan, I am not from this time and am from another realm like this, only it was destroyed by the man who used you to fight the Shodem and my father. She growled angrily, Madara Uchiha, I swear if I ever see that man I'll rip him apart. Since she had never before encountered this type of contact in her life, she freezes when Naruto approaches her enraged form and embraces her. Startled by the physical contact, she asked, "WH. What are you doing?" But Naruto withdrew and his eyes locked with hers. She wondered what it was about this that made her feel a little warm, and she was perplexed by the range of emotions she could see radiating from his eyes, from happiness to regret and sorrow. He closes his eye and opens them again, revealing a pair of red eyes with a six-bladed shuriken on the outside and a hexagonal star shape on the inside. "I lost you once in my timeline, Hitome-chan," she says, blushing slightly at the last words, "when I was captured by that man and another Uchiha. They were preparing to extract you and seal you into a demonic statue in order to revive the Juubi, but I created a seal that reversed the effects and I ended up absorbing the spirits of the other 8 Biju including you." Her eyes widened in surprise as she met Madara Uchiha's eyes, which were devoid of evil, hatred, and malice. They were brimming with love, kindness, and compassion. She felt a protective aura emanating from those eyes. "Whether we fall in love or not is up to you, but I won't let Madara and his organization capture you or the other vessels and their Biju." His eyes return to normal, and he transforms his mindscape into a lovely forest and a house that resembles the one he created from the future. "In my time we fell in love and I had created a seal that would have set you free, which I just currently used. I'm also in a way the new Juubi since its power and soul is now a part of me and I am also in some sense immortal. I will protect you Hitomi no Yoko and I will kill Madara Uchiha." He made a vow. She simply stares up at him for a long moment before grinning and laughing. Using a seductive tone, she kisses him on the lips and he reciprocates, saying, "This must have been the reason why my future self fell in love with you. You have the desire to protect everyone, even those who despise you for containing me. I'll hold you in regards to freeing me kid, and when you do, well, I'll leave that to your imagination." They pause after that, and Kyuubi gives him a seductive glance. He disappears from his mindscape after she says, "I can't wait till you free me, my future mate." Naruto smiles as he emerges from his mindscape and opens his eyes. He looks down at his sister's sleeping form and strokes her hair, promising, "I will not let the Akatsuki win this time." When Kushina and Jiraiya showed up, Kakashi, Anko, Yugo, and Rin were watching out for the root Anbu. Kushina had blood on her sword and flak jacket, but Jiraiya was unharmed. After removing the flak jacket and flicking the blood off her sword, she uses Kaiden Jutsu to burn it. When Naruto notices this, he slowly stands up, places Shinku on his back, and carries her in a piggyback position. With his sleeping Imouto on his back, he walks towards his mother and godfather, wrapping his arms around her legs to keep her from falling off. When he asks, "Are you okay Ka-san? Arrow? Senin?" Kushina nods and smiles, but Jiraiya's eye twitches at the name. She then turns to face Kakashi and the 3 Kunoichi and says, "Yes, we're fine, Naruto-kun." They crossed the border to Kaminari no Kuni after she said, "Well, let's get going everyone." Naruto wondered how his presence at this moment would affect things while traveling to Kumo, but at this point, all he cared about was spending time with his family and establishing a life away from Konoha. Although Kumogakure was somewhat colder than Konoha, it was still unquestionably a beautiful place. The rivers and lakes were as clear as day, the mountains almost rose into the sky, and the skies were as clear as day. As Kushina, Jiraiya, and the others traveled the path that led to Kumogakure, various kinds of birds flew through the air. At the moment, Naruto had Shinku on his back as she giggled and played with his hair. Throughout the journey, Naruto's brow was constantly moving. Rin was squealing kawaii inwardly as she watched. When Kushina saw her Sochi's brow twitch at Shinku playing with his hair, she had to suppress a laugh. To get Kushina's attention, Jiraiya gave her a gentle tap on the shoulder and spoke softly. The Toad Sage asks, "So Kushina, When do you plan on training the squirts? He had no idea that Naruto was grinning and listening to this through his enhanced hearing. He was already familiar with all of the jutsu he had learned from Jiraiya on his training trip as well as those he had learned from the Uchiha during his lifetime. He will ensure that Madara, the Akatsuki, Orochimaru, Danzo, and all other individuals who pose a threat to him and his loved ones are eliminated and have a 1-on-1 encounter with the Shinigami before being sent to hell once he is strong enough. This time, I won't let them win. Uchiha Madara. His eyes briefly flickered to the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan before returning to their normal state. You better pray we don't meet soon because if we do, you're the first one I kill. A tiny fist then gave him a gentle tap on the head, and when he turned around, Shinku was smiling at him. Am I too heavy for you, Aniki? She asks, and he shakes his head and grins slightly. His cheeky grin said, no, not really. Though you do need to cut back on the dango imoudo. After gasping, Shinku uses her fingers to stretch his cheeks, causing him to cry out in agony and draw everyone's attention. She screams, are you calling me fat? At him. While anime tears stream down Naruto's face from the agony of having his cheeks stretched out, they all start to perspire. This makes Kushina laugh until her eyes enlarge and she, along with Kakashi, Yugo, Rin, and Enko, pull out her sword. 6 Kumo Anbu suddenly leapt out of the trees in front of the 8 travelers as she said, come on out Anbu-san. The person with the silver white hooded cloak and the lion mask advanced. Jiraiya intervened when he said, we didn't come here to fight aka no Shi, Red Death. We wish to know why you, Jiraiya of the Sannin, 4 Konoha Anbu, and 2 children doing in Kaminari territory? While Kushina and the former Konoha Anbu sheathe their swords, he responds, we're here to seek temporary asylum in Kumogakure and would like an audience with the Raikage about it. After observing them for a while, the leader raises his voice. Is there a reason why you want a temporary asylum in Kumo? She inquires. Kushina tilts her head toward her daughter and son. He turns to face the red-headed woman and blonde boy as she responds, yes. From Konoha and for my children. I see. I'll inform the guards at the gate to let you pass as well as Raikage. Sama, but you might want to seal away your weapons as a warning. He says as they shunshin away. With a sigh of relief, Kushina approaches Naruto and Shinku, who are tending to her brother's back. After Kakashi locks their weapons in a scroll, Kushina gathers her 2 kids and carries them in each arm as they make their way to Kumogakure. Tower of Kumogakure Raikage, the Yondaime Raikage, was sitting in his office doing paperwork and arm curls with a big dumbbell. He is a tall, dark-skinned man with a large, muscular frame, white hair that is slicked back and has a yellow tint. He has a few wrinkles and a small beard and mustache. He further accentuated his muscular body by wearing the cage hat and robes without a shirt underneath. Both of his shoulders are inked with black shuriken. He has gold bangle bracelets on each wrist that appear to protrude, and a gold belt with an engraving of a lion's face in the middle is worn around his waist. He looks like a professional wrestler because of all these factors combined. His secretary enters and bows as he finishes the final piece of paperwork. He drops the dumbbell from his left hand and it hits the ground with a metallic thud as she says, Raikage. Sama, there's a group of people here who wish to have an audience with you. He raises an eyebrow in the woman's direction. She responds when he asks, and who are they? When he hears the names Jiraiya and aka no Shi, his eyes enlarge. Jiraiya of the Sannin and the aka no Shi. The rest seem to be Konoha nin and have 2 kids with them. He says, send them in. She nods and goes out the door to let them know. The Raikage stopped writing and turned to face Jiraiya, Kushina, and the others as the door opened and they entered the office. Kushina interrupts him to ask, so tell me, what does the Sannin and the aka no Shi want with my village? Her response causes the man's eyes to widen slightly before they settle back down. Raikage. Sama, me and the group who are loyal to my family wish to have a temporary asylum in Kumogakure. As he laces his hands together and looks at them, he asks, is that so? Why should I even offer you all asylum here? What is it that you and your group can offer me the cage of the village? Kushina briefly shuts her eyes before opening them. As she asks, he almost passes out and looks at her in disbelief. Tell me Raikage. Sama, you have 2 Jinchuriki living here in the village, right? I believe one is your brother and the other is your adopted daughter Kurabi, container of the Hachibi and Yugito ni, container of the Nibi, correct? He asks, how do you know this? And she turns to face Jiraiya, who was grinning. He laughs as he examines the toad sage. She sighs and brushes her red hair back when he asks, I see. But what does my brother and Yugi have to do with your group? His eyes had grown to the size of saucers as she responded. My son is the container for the Kyuubi no Kitsune. Naruto approached the big man and gazed at him without showing any signs of fear. The Raikage examines the child, wondering why his appearance didn't make him anxious, but he brushes it off and turns to face Kushina. There, he sees a smaller redhead standing behind her brother, peering over his shoulder. Then he turns to face Kushina. The four former Anbu tens up at his question, are they the children of the Kiroi Senku, Minato Namikaze also? Until the man laughs. The woman frowns and looks at her son sorrowfully as he asks, don't worry, I don't mean any harm like that idiot Tsuchikage does. I truly respect your husband's power and to think that he went head to head with the most powerful Biju of the nine. He sighs when he sees this. He looks up at Kushina, who turns back to face him and continues, so they praise the father and damn the son I never would have thought the so-called strongest village, in the shinobi world would sink so low. We, meaning me, Kakashi Hatake, Anko Midarashi, Rin Inuzuka, and Yugo Uzuki would like to work as freelance nin for you Raikage. Sama. The same goes for my children when they're old enough, she responds. He gives a hem and ponders for a moment after glancing at the four former Black Ops who nod. The heirs of the Kiroi Senku and aka no Shi, the son of the Shiroi no Kiba, the former apprentice of Orochimaru, and Inuzuka, and a Kenjutsu Kunoichi. If I didn't allow them to join, even for a brief period of time, I would be foolish. He thought, after all, Kumo gains from Konoha's loss, and then he gave them a slight smile. She smiles as he says, very well Kushina-san, I will allow you and your group to stay in Kumo and work as freelance nin for us. She raises an eyebrow at him as he says, I only ask you of this. And what would that be Raikage? Sama? She inquires. She and the others give him a startled look as he responds, I would like to train the boy personally and have my brother teach him how to use the power of the Biju he contains. I'll consider your offer, but I want them to get the basics down first before they do any serious training. You understand my reasons correct? She inquires. He merely waves and laughs at her. Yes I do. Since you and your group want to work as freelance nin for my village, what mission ranks will you all accept? He inquires. B, A, and S rank missions that consist of espionage, tracking and assassination. Those are what we specialize in. Kushina responds with a nod. Just as he opened his mouth to speak, a man who appeared to be a younger entered through the kicked, open door. He was a 6'5" dark-skinned man with white hair, a beard, and a muscular physique. He has a tattoo of a bull's horn on his left cheek and the word, Tetsu, iron, on his right shoulder. He also wore a white forehead protector and oval-shaped sunglasses. Additionally, he is dressed in a Kumogakure Jonin's white one-strap over one-shoulder flak jacket, which features a white scarf around his neck, black pants and sandals, white handbands, and a red rope tied around his waist. He has 7 swords on his back as well. He was the Jinchuriki of the 8-tailed giant ox and Kurabi, Killer B, a shinobi of Kumogakure. Kurabi entered the room beaming broadly. He raps while receiving sweat drops from the former Konoha and Shinku nin. Big bro, what's happening yo? He asks. The Kurabi from this era was the same as the one from the future, so Naruto was moaning to himself. Very annoying and unable to rhyme. However, he was unquestionably the one person you don't want to deal with directly. He groaned as he slapped his forehead. When his brother is about to speak, he slouches his shoulders and says, Kurabi, what do you want now? If it's another vacation request then the answer is no. Ah come on big bro. Cut me some slack yo. I've been spending the last month training little Yugito. He complains until a 9-year-old blonde, wearing a purple short-sleeved shirt, gray pants, and purple shinobi sandals, puts him down and kicks him in the back of the head. She was Yugito ni, the Nibi no Nekomata's Jinchuriki. As Yugito falls to the ground and glares at the man, Kurabi simply stood there using one finger to scratch his cheek. Kurabi turns to see the blonde woman's blue-slitted eyes glaring at him. A tick mark appears on her head as he says, oh hey, kitty cat. Don't refer to me that way. Why did you abandon me to spend 3 hours exploring the cave? Call it survival training kitty, she says, yelling at him as the perspiration on the other people's heads grows larger. She growled at him, but then she saw that everyone else in the room was staring at them, and she blushed in shame. Besides, you would have found your way out due to your heightened senses, he replied. Hey buddy, why are Konoha Anbu, Toad Senin, and aka no Shi here? He points to them and asks, they're here to work as freelance nin for our village. Kurabi raises an eyebrow at them before turning back to Nato. So the kid contains the foxy H. Interesting, he remarks, turning to face Naruto, who returns the look. And you contain the ox. Naruto responds, to which Karabi chuckles, hey the kid's got spunky bro. As Yugito approaches the 6-year-old and they exchange long looks, he says, Oi Yugito, introduce yourself to the Gaki. With a cheeky smile, she says, you're short for a boy. Naruto's eye twitches. I'm 6. As the adults observe, Shinku whimpers, of course I'm short kitty. Chan. Her eye twitches as well. Aniki. Following that, he gives them a 2-story house near mountains and a large lake that is connected to a river, and after they have settled in, Kushina, Anko, Yugo, Rin, and Kakashi unpacked everything she took from her previous residence and set up the house. Jiraiya then departs to check on his spy network. In his mindscape, Naruto's older form was sitting on a bed with Hitomi, who is in her hybrid form, resting her head on his lap and rubbing the back of her right ear, causing her to purr as he laughed. You know your future self loved getting scratched behind her ear also, and I can see why, he said as her purr grew a little louder. Shinku was sleeping on one of the beds, while Naruto was sleeping. As he laughed, she muttered, less talking, more scratching. Whatever you say, Bara-chan. He growled, and one of her tails brushed his neck. So when do I get my freedom? Should I earn it instead? She sat up, put one of her tails around his waist, and showed him her cleavage before asking. As Naruto laughs, a yellow tail emerges from behind his back, its tip placed beneath her chin, and he gently pulls her face forward until she is just inches from his face. Her face blushes slightly, and Naruto leans into her ear and whispers into it. Naruto raised an eyebrow at this, then snapped his fingers in front of her face, causing her to blink a few times as her eyes widened and her blush increased. She shivered as he continued talking into her, then moved away from her ear and looked at her frozen but flushed face. Wah! She exclaims, only to have Naruto laugh at her with a smile, and she puffs her cheeks out at him, feeling like a pervert. In any case, how will you release me? She asks, but when Naruto rubs her behind her ear, she begins to purr once more. Simple, he says, grinning, before putting his middle and index fingers on the collared seal on her neck and taking his other hand away from behind her ear. The collar seal around her neck glows bluish-white as he then uses his right hand to perform a series of one-handed seals before stopping at the ram seal. Fuinjutsu. Tenma Tugoku Gokuen. Kai, sealing jutsu. Demon imprisonment seal. Release. As he mutters, the seal abruptly disappears, and a drop of perspiration falls from his forehead. When Hitomi tackles him on the bed, Naruto sighs with relief. Before he can say anything, she locks lips with him, causing his eyes to widen in surprise. She then lets go of the kiss and smiles at him, saying, that was for freeing me of the seal. She smiles and says, I'll give you my thanks when you're a little older. Hitomi laughs as Naruto simply blinks and disappears from his mindscape. Naruto looks at his 6-year-old form and sighs as he wakes up, blushing, and mumbles something about perverted vixens. I guess I'll have to wait until I turn 14, he says. I detest time travel, damn it. Until he hears the door open and Kakashi enters wearing an all-black Jonin outfit and a silver flak jacket. He murmurs to himself, well, at least I still have the knowledge of the things I know in the future, and I know the secret to the shadow clone jutsu. The copy Nin turns to face Naruto, who is staring at him with a blonde smile. Hey Kakashi. Ni-san. Naruto says, and Kakashi smiles back. Hey Oto. Are you done sleeping? He asks and the blonde nods. Yep. Where are the others and Ka-san? As he leaps from the bed and approaches the man, he asks. He responds, I'm getting some supplies for the house while I take care of you two. Oh. Hey Ni-san. Could you show us how to use chakra when Shinku awakens? As Kakashi's eye enlarges and he rubs his chin thoughtfully, Naruto asks, sure why not? Naruto nods as he says, we'll wait for Shinku to wake up before we start. When Shiku wakes up 30 minutes later, she leaps from the bed and rubs her right eye before leaving the room to find Kakashi reading an orange book and her brother spinning a fake shuriken on his finger. Kakashi looks up from his book and notices the redhead approaching him. Hey Shinku-chan, how was your nap? You know what? Kakashi asks, and she nods. Shinku squealed and glomped Kakashi's leg after he said, I'm going to be teaching you and your brother some of the basics of being a shinobi and how to use chakra. The chibi redhead gave him a startled look. When she releases her grip, Kakashi laughs and pats her on the head. Come on you three, let's head outside. He gestured for them to follow him, and they did. Carrying bags of groceries, Kushina, Rin, Anko, and Yugo made their way back to the house and entered the front door. Upon entering the kitchen, they discovered that Kakashi, Naruto, and Shinku were not there, so they hurried back and saw Kakashi demonstrate a number of hand seals. Shinku was blinking and attempting to imitate Kakashi's hand gestures. She makes a mistake with the boar sign, but surprisingly, Naruto manages to get them all down. After he has all 12 down, he starts to pick up the pace a bit. Shinku pouts at this, and Naruto looks at her and tries not to laugh, just as Kakashi does, but she glares at Kakashi, who looks away. "Here Imouto," Naruto says as he sits in front of Shinku. He says, "I'll help you with the seals," and Naruto slowly demonstrates them to her, and she follows suit. Kakashi observes the siblings practicing the hand seals, and when Shinku successfully completes them all without making a mistake, she applauds and gives her blue-faced Aniki a hug. Both Kakashi and the twin were laughing at what they saw. Ahem. Kushina coughed loudly, drawing both Kakashi's and the twins' attention. Kakashi nervously rubbed the back of his neck. "Oh hey Kushina-san. I was merely teaching the children hand seals and the fundamentals of shinobi." He prayed she wouldn't hurt him, but all she did was smile and shrug. "I hope you don't mind," he said. "Don't worry, Kakashi. As long as you don't impart any harmful knowledge to them. Otherwise, I'd have to kill you as a man," she says as the Cyclops turns pale and begins to perspire. Naruto didn't show it, but he was perspiring internally. When Shikaku sneezed and muttered something obnoxious while in Konoha, he was struck in the head by a frying pan. "Man. Now I understand why the males in the Nara clan are afraid of their wives. Kushina. Senpai, I know you plan on teaching Shinku and Naruto Kenjutsu, but may I teach them the basics in a few years?" she asks. Anko smiles and says, "Yeah sensei, I want to teach the Gakis too," before continuing. "Me too," exclaims Rin. Then they use the puppy eye jutsu to appear in front of Kushina. The redhead sighs and drops a drop of perspiration. As they squeal and embrace as a group, with Kushina in the center and getting pale, she responds, "Okay. You can train them." She squeaked out, "Can, breathe." Her kids laughed at her situation. After 8 years, Kakashi taught Naruto and Shinku how to throw kunai and shuriken as well as chakra control techniques like water walking and tree climbing when they turned 7. Additionally, he showed them how to conceal themselves by compressing their chakra. At the age of 8, Anko and Yugo began teaching them academic jutsu, trap setting techniques, and some survival skills like hunting. After that, Yugo taught them the fundamentals of Kenjutsu, and to their amazement, they both adjusted quite well. They learned the fundamentals of human anatomy, ijutsu, medical jutsu, such as the mystic palm and chakra scalpels, and poison extraction from Rin when they were 9 years old. She also showed them how to heal wounds and how to use senbon to attack specific body parts. Kakashi made the decision to determine their elemental affinity when they turned 10. Unbelievably, Shinku had 3, fire, water, and wind. To everyone's surprise, Naruto had 4 affinities. They were fire, lightning, wind, and water. Since Kushina was primarily knowledgeable in wind and water jutsu, she taught them both some D and C ranked techniques for those elements. While Yugo and Anko taught Shinku some fire jutsu they were familiar with, Kakashi taught Naruto some basic lightning and fire jutsu. Additionally, the two siblings met Kurabi's genin Karui, Samui, and Omoi, who were undergoing training. Naruto learned how to use the chakra of his biju from said container. As everyone knows, when the biju from the future became the Juubi's soul, Naruto was actually using the Juubi chakra he had acquired when he absorbed the demon's soul. Along with teaching Naruto his fighting style, he also taught him some lightning jutsu. Jiraiya arrived when Naruto and Shinku turned 11, taught them some of his own jutsu, such as the Hari Jizo and Yomi Numa, and began teaching them the fundamentals of Fuinjutsu. Thanks to Naruto's future knowledge of the art, he was able to master the fundamentals. Jiraiya was astounded by how proficient Naruto and Shinku were at using Fuinjutsu. They seemed to have adapted to their father's knowledge of the sealing arts. Most novices found it difficult to grasp the principles of Fuinjutsu, but Naruto and Shinku picked it up quickly and even began to develop their own Fuinjutsu. Additionally, Kushina had the twins sign the Hydra contract, and he allowed them to sign the Toad contract. In Whirlpool, a contract that belonged to her clan before it was destroyed. Thus far, each of them was able to call forth a Hydra and a frog the size of a horse. Both cage-level Nin were shocked when Shinku and Naruto summoned a saltwater crocodile and a Komodo dragon, respectively, because summoning them required Junin-level chakra control. That resulted from the numerous physical and chakra exercises that Kakashi, Yugo, and Anko forced them to perform. Naruto also experienced this during his training with Ii and Kurabi. Jiraiya chose to teach Naruto and Shinku the Rasengan after Kushina taught them her sword technique, Shukuchi, when they were 12 years old. It took Shinku 2 weeks to figure it out, but Naruto helped her understand the steps and she managed to do it in less than a week. The only distinction between Naruto's jutsu and the Hiraishin's was that the former was based on speed rather than kunai. The twins reached Itachi's level at the age of 13. Shinku's ninja skills were at a high Junin level, while Naruto's were already at a mid-Anbu level. Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze was sitting with his eyes closed in a lotus position in the center of the lake. He was now 14 years old, 5 feet 7 inches, and dressed in a deep blue cargo suit with a silver lining down the side, a black sleeveless muscle shirt, and sandals in the Anbu style. In addition, he wore a pair of metal, padded fingerless gloves. With the exception of his slitted blue eyes and the fangs protruding from his upper lip, he now resembled his father in his adolescent years. Additionally, he wore a black headband with a metal piece and the image of a whirlpool on it. When he saw 4 black snakes emerge from the water and come toward him with their mouths open, exposing their fangs, his eyes snapped open, and he immediately jumped up and out of the lake. Naruto swiped his left wrist, which was sealed with a containment seal, and bit his thumb. A ninjutsu emerges in his right hand along with a tiny puff of smoke. After that, he positions it in reverse. He spins when the snakes are close enough, slashes them counterclockwise, and then flips again in midair, landing in the water in a crouched position while the snakes feel their way into it. After deflecting a flurry of kunai that were coming his way with a twist of his body, he takes out a silver throwing knife and throws it to deflect a shuriken. He rushes over and grabs the throwing knife he threw. He retrieves the shuriken and puts the knife back in the pouch he had fastened to his back. Naruto hurls the shuriken at the yellow blur that was approaching him from behind. The blur moved to the right and continued to charge. As a fist aimed for his head but missed and went by, Naruto placed the ninjutsu on the ground and leaned back. Yugito Ni was the one. She was dressed differently, and she is now 17 years old. She wore her longer hair in a ponytail. She also sported a silver and black shirt that accentuated her growing cupped breasts and embraced her body's curves. She wore fingerless gloves and purple sandals with tight black pants. She had a Kumo headband on her head. Since the beginning, Naruto and Kurabi have been friends. However, as Yugito grew older, she would tease him about looking at her when he thought she wasn't looking, and Naruto would simply flirt back by calling her Kitty-chan, which irritates her a lot despite the fact that she contained the Nibi. Even better was the fact that he, Shinku, and Yugito constantly played practical jokes on the Raikage or the village to make things more lively. Jiraiya and Kakashi were the primary targets of Naruto's pranks, despite the fact that he was far more serious now than he was in his day. Then, startling her by grabbing her outstretched hand, Naruto turns his body behind her and around her, pressing her arm behind her back. After that, he puts pressure on her neck with his other arm, causing the blonde to gurgle. Then, as she struggles in his grasp and flinches as he tightens his grip on her wrist, he inhales the scent of her hair. He asks, "Guava berry Yugi-chan?" Yugito also smirks before pushing back and slamming into the ground with her weight added to his. As a result, Naruto grunts and releases his hold on her. Yugito lands on her feet after flipping backwards. After flipping back onto his feet, Naruto pulls the ninjutsu back into his grasp and spins it around for a while before lunging toward Yugito with his sword ready to stab. Yugito takes out a pair of gauntlets with 3 jagged claws attached after reaching into the back of her 2 pouches. They both swing their weapons at each other as she charges at him as well. Clang! Sparks flew everywhere as the blades ground and clashed with one another. Yugito gives the blonde a sly smile before swinging her left clawed hand in her direction. When Naruto notices this, he leaps over the attack, uses her arm as a spring, and kicks her in the back before landing on the opposite side. Behind him, a redhead who appeared to be Naruto's age and was dressed in a black and red outfit similar to her mother gives him a roundhouse kick. She falls toward the ground after Naruto ducks and lands a sweep kick on her other leg, but she plants her arm on the ground and spins around in midair to get back up on her feet. Once more charging at Naruto, Yugito swings her clawed arms at the blonde, who sidesteps her, before kicking him in the head. Naruto uses his left arm to block it, and Shinku slashes at his back horizontally while brandishing a kodachi with a black hilt encrusted with red diamonds. Both girls are shocked when she slashes him across the back, causing him to vanish in a cloud of smoke and be replaced by a log. After grabbing Shinku by the back of her jacket, the blonde swung her around violently and slammed her into the ground, causing the girl to grunt. The blonde then struck Yugito in the stomach with her palm, sending the girl skidding backwards. Then Naruto pulls out 3 kunai and hurls them at Shinku, who jumps off the ground as the weapons strike the ground and her eyes widen in horror. Then she feels a pull on her heel, and the next thing she knows, she's struggling after getting caught in a net. This makes Naruto smile. He says, "One down." He sidesteps when a yellow lightning bolt passes by him but slightly burns his cheek. She smiles as Yugito emerges behind him, holding a kunai close to his throat. Yugito smiles while Naruto frowns. She says, "Gotcha Foxy.kun." Her eyes enlarge as Naruto turns into water and she feels a throwing knife blade close to her neck and one arm encircle her waist. The older blonde blushes slightly as he holds her even closer and says, "No kitty. Chan, I have you." Shinku yells, "Oi, Aniki. Get me out of this net." Naruto aims his blade at Yugi's neck, pointing it in the direction of the rope that entangled Shinku. The redhead falls out of the net and lands on her feet after he flicks it with a flick of his wrist, cutting one of the lines. The girls blush even more as Naruto puts his head on Yugito's shoulder and wraps both hands around her waist. Shinku sighs as he approaches the 2 blondes. She puts her hands on her hips and she sheaths her sword, saying, "We almost had you that time, Aniki." Naruto says, laughing. As she HMPHS, he responds, "Almost doesn't count Imoudo. Anyway, I'm heading home to grab a bite to eat. Are you 2 going to stay there with Yugito? Or are you both coming?" Naruto smirks as she asks. Yugi's eyes widen as he says, "Yep." Shinku shrugs at his response, "Okay, bye then." She says, disappearing into a whirlpool of water, and Yugito's face stays flushed as he rests his head on her shoulder. Yugito sighs and sits down with her in his arms. "You almost caught me again, Yugito. Chan." She laughs as he responds, "But why can't I catch you? You are the youngest Junin in the village. Do you mind?" she asks. He kisses her cheek and says, "Because Yugi, foxes are tricksters." Yugi grunts a little and slides her arms over his while she's lying back on his chest. A smile spreads across her face. "I bet Yusamui is complaining about her neck and back hurting and wants you to give her a massage," she says, and Naruto laughs. "Probably so. You want one, but why?" he asks and she shakes her head. "Nope. I'm all right," she says. "You're lying, kitten. You want one of those divine massages from him. Or have you forgotten that I can hear what you're thinking? It's not my fault you want the blonde fox," Nibby tells her blushing vessel, yelling into her head, "Shush. Shut up, Nibby." As the 2-tailed cat giggles. "What is this? Shut up, and stop looking at my private thoughts," she yelled at the now meowing demon cat, showing Naruto.kun stripping you down to your underwear and adopting you as one of his. "Is Nibby telling you to get in my pants again?" Naruto asks, noticing how red her face was. Naruto asks, getting a nod from the blonde female, and he lets out a laugh. "Tempting, aren't I?" Naruto purrs a little as he takes her hand after she laughs and strokes his right cheek in response to his question. She smirks as he says, "Please don't do that, Yugi." Naruto then tickles her sides, causing her to giggle. "Okay, I'm sorry," she says, and he stops. He then releases her as he gets up and assists her in standing up. "Well, I have to go, Naruto.kun." She poses for the blonde, saying, "Perhaps next time we can do more than cuddle." Naruto laughs and gives her a kiss on the lips, which she reciprocates. Naruto then disappears in a whirlpool of white flames as she shunshuns away. Compound Namikaze Shinku was eating an apple in the kitchen when Naruto entered the house and saw Kakashi sitting on the couch, watching an action movie on the flat screen TV, with his arm around Rin, who was sleeping on his chest. He went upstairs and into his room, where he removed his headband, all of his weapons, weights, and sandals before falling back onto his bed and closing his eyes. He then feels a strange weight on top of him, and when he opens his eyes, he sees that Hitomi, who was dressed in a pair of reddish-orange shorts and a sleeveless black tank top that embraced her hourglass figure, was staring at him with a smile. "Hey Naruto.kun. Have I bothered you?" she asks with her head cocked to the side, and Naruto smiles because she looks adorable doing that. "No, not at all. What do you want, then?" When he asks, she pouts. "I want to cuddle," he says. "I have no one to pet my tail or scratch my ears, and it's boring to be in that mansion inside your mindscape. Would you please?" She pulls the puppy eyes jutsu and begs, "I'm lonely." Hitomi smiles like a fox when Naruto nods and snickers, saying, "Yay, I get to cuddle with my foxy.kun." She puts her head on his chest and wraps her arms around his waist. After putting an arm around her and scratching behind her ear, which causes Hitomi to purr, Naruto moves her head close to the bend of his neck, closes his eyes, and goes to sleep. When Kushina turned the knob a few hours later while she was heading down the hallway to Naruto's room, she opened the door and looked inside to find her son sitting Indian style on his bed with a red fox curled up in his lap, purring as he stroked her back and wagging her tail, indicating that she was content. "Where did you get that fox, Naruto-kun?" As the fox sits up and stretches, she sees Kushina and yips. "She followed me home, and when I tried to get her to go back into the wild, she just wouldn't leave my side, so I just let her come home with me," Kushina asks as her son looks up at her. The fox jumps off his lap and runs towards Kushina, who stops in front of the redhead and stares at the older redhead. Kushina squats down and reaches out to rub the fox behind her ear, and the fox gives a joyful yip before licking her hand, which makes the redhead smile. "Go say hi to Mom Hitomi," he says. The blonde nods as she says, "Oh Naruto, the Raikage wants you and Shinku to patrol the shores of Kumogakure for 3 days. Well, she is cute." She scoops Hitomi into her arms, and the fox begins to lick her cheek, causing Kushina to giggle. She then puts Hitomi down, who was grinning at the redhead. "All right. I'll prepare my belongings. Is Shinku aware already?" She nods in response to his question, and Naruto gets up to prepare his supplies before heading downstairs with a duffel bag and backpack while wearing Hitomi around his neck like a scarf. "What's up with the fox, Aniki?" he asks, noticing Shinku, who had her equipment ready and arched an eyebrow at the living scarf around his neck. "She followed me home," she asks, gesturing to the waggish tail. "Are you prepared?" His sister nods in agreement as he asks, "See ya Kakashi.ni.san." The siblings yelled as the man waved without turning to face them, and the two shushed away as Rin moaned and nestled into his chest as he held her even closer. Shinku interrupted, saying, "Hey Aniki, how far are you with your new technique?" A yellow and red blur was racing to the shores of Kumo in the meantime. "Not as far as I hope," she asks. "Why can't I use it more than 25 times before I get tired?" She blinks when he asks. Whoa. After 3 hours of running and checking with the Anbu at one of the patrol bases, Naruto and Shinku set up camp near the shore and kept a comm link and a walkie-talkie with them as they went in different directions. "That's actually good," she says as they jump over some large rocks that were in a river. Additionally, they made some cage bushins, Komodo dragons, and crocodiles that patrol the lower levels and waters. Naruto was jumping through tree branches and scanning the area for any intruders when he tilted the tiny microphone close to his mouth and spoke. "Hey Shinku, have you already spotted anything fishy?" Through the comm link, he asks. "No, Naruto, I haven't," as he hears a feminine voice and some static in his ears. "How about you?" "Over," she asks, and he shakes his head. "Nothing yet," he exclaims as he jumps through the trees, lands close to a cliff where the shores are, and watches the waves crash into the sand. He then spots a body sweeping into the sand and long black hair. He jumps off the cliff and skids down the rocky edge until he hits the soft sand, then he runs towards the shore where the body was. When he gets close enough, he turns it over and his eyes widen as he realizes who this is. Mei Chan. He whispers to himself, noticing that her Junin outfit was torn in some places, that she had some cuts and bruises, and that she was wearing a metal plate with the Kiri symbol on her left shoulder blade. He then puts his head close to her chest to check her heart rate, which was slow but she was alive but not breathing. "Shinku, it's me. I found an unconscious Kunoichi from Kirigakure wash up on the shores and she's still alive but barely," Naruto says, pressing the red button on his walkie-talkie and speaking into his comm link. She says, "Hi," and he says, "I need you to go to the nearest tower and have a medical team come to my location." "Where have you gone, Aniki?" He raises his voice when she asks. He responds, "Okay, I'm heading to the base now to get the medical squad. Keep her alive until we get there. Over and out. I'm in the north-eastern section of the shoreline and 7 miles from our camp. Over." Naruto lets out a sigh, unzips her flak jacket, and thanks Kami. He couldn't take his eyes off her chest, so he was wearing a mesh shirt underneath. After that, he shakes his head to get the ideas out. To perform cardiopulmonary resuscitation, CPR. He carefully pries her mouth open, places his hands over her chest, applies pressure to it a few times, and then locks her lips to allow air to enter her lungs. He pauses and puts his head close to her chest, but he hears nothing. She sputters and coughs out a lot of salt water while sucking in oxygen as he repeats the procedure a few more times. After the 3rd time, he swiftly pulls his head away from hers. As she inhales more air, he helps her sit up and massages her back. The chakra was healing her lungs so she wouldn't strain when breathing, and his hand glows green. Her breathing returns to normal, but as he clings to her, she falls into his arms. Then, holding her bridal style, he stands up. He turns to see 3 Anbu medics and Shinku approaching. He approaches them until they are only a few feet away. They nod as he tells them, "I managed to heal her lungs, but we need to take her back to out camp so she can get more treatment." After that, they return to Naruto's camp to treat her more humanely and learn how she got to the Kumo shores. The campsite. After treating Mei's wounds, the Anbu medics left her with Naruto and Shinku after Naruto promised to take full responsibility for her. While Naruto remained in the tent to keep watch over her, Shinku went off to complete her shift patrolling the shoreline. Kiri and the Yondaime Mizukage must still be engaged in a civil war. However, how did she travel this far? He ponders until he hears her moan and her jade green eyes slowly open. After a few blinks, she recognizes that she was in a tent. She murmurs to herself, "Where am I?" As she looks around and spots a blonde shinobi who appears to be 14 years old and wearing a headband with a swirl on it. She asks, "Who are you?" And the blonde laughs. Naruto asks as she blinks for a moment, "Now is that any way to treat your savior Kunuchi-san?" He nods when she asks, "Why you save me?" She looked under the covers and saw that she was wearing a tank top and shorts, with her arms, legs, and torso bandaged. Her eyes widened, and she turned to face Naruto, who laughed at her glare. "You washed up on the shorelines of Kumogakure and I revived you and brought you back to my tent while the medics checked your condition," he replied. "Calm down. My sister took off your clothes while I was outside the tent and made sure the medical staff didn't do anything amusing to you while tending to your injuries," he responds, rubbing the back of his head. "I got the lump proving she kicked me out even when I was going to leave." Mei gives him a suspicious look for a while before grinning back. Her eyes widened as she began to say, "Thank you Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. Why? You're the son of the Kiroi Senku and the aka no Shi. But if that's true then why aren't you in Konohagakure?" She asks, and he nods. "My mother took me and my sister away from there because certain members of the council wanted to either kill me or turn us into breeding factories when we got older." He sighs in response to her question, and her eyes enlarge. "Are you serious? Why would they wish to harm you and your family in that way?" She asks, and he responds, "Sorry, but it's a family secret." She sneers at that. "All right. You mean I'm in Kumogakure? Am I a prisoner?" Naruto shakes his head in response to her question. "No, until our border patrol mission is over, I will be your caretaker." He rubs the back of his head sheepishly and says, "Oh, I forgot to ask you your name." "Mei Terumi, and thanks for saving me Naruto-san," she responds, and he nods. As thunder roars overhead and they hear the rain pelting the tent, Naruto snorts and laughs. And Mei slowly sits up and arches an eyebrow at him. "Something humoring you, Naruto?" "Yeah, my sister is suffering in that downpour," she asks the giggling blonde. When the tent entrance flaps open and he sees a wet and irate Shinku, he stops laughing after responding, "She hates the rain. Foolish weather reports and dumb rain. Hey Imoudo." She mumbles, "I'm going to kick that ANBU's ass for saying that it wasn't going to rain." She takes off her jacket, which is made of mesh and a tank top underneath. Shinku just glares at him and moves to her side of the tent, where she sits on the ground. She takes off her mesh shirt and then her tank top, which is made of a sports bra underneath. "Aniki, do you have an extra towel?" Naruto takes one from his duffel bag and throws it to her when she asks. She puts the towel around her shoulders, sits down with her legs crossed, leans back, and says, "Thanks." She then wipes her face and hair. "I see our guest has woken up," she says. Mei's eyes widen as she looks at the two and responds, "I'm Shinku, Naruto's twin." She says, "I'm Mei Terumi and thanks for rescuing me." Shinku smiles and responds, "You're welcome." Mei then turns to face her and Naruto, whose jacket has now been taken off to reveal a black sleeveless muscle shirt. Mei had to look away to contain her blush before she could ask a question. "You two are in the same tent?" she asks. They blink and look at each other then look back at her. "Yes we do. Why?" "To clarify, I am aware that you two are siblings, but do you change in the same tent?" Shinku asks. Mei's eyes bulge out of her head as she looks at the twins, who snicker and look back at her. "Yeah we do, and it doesn't bother us. I mean we used to share and change in the same room when we were little," Naruto responds. "What? However, isn't it embarrassing to change in front of someone of the other sex?" she asks and they shook their heads. No, both of them smile as they respond, "Not really." "Wow." Her stomach rumbled as she said, "You're kind of odd for gender twins." The twins giggled lightly as she flushed. Naruto approaches a cooler, takes out a canteen full of sliced fruit, and hands it to Mei, who takes it, opens the lid, and takes out a slice of apple. "Thank you," she says, biting into the apple slice, and he responds, "You're welcome." As she takes out another and consumes it, Naruto chooses to speak up, saying, "So Mei-san, what caused you to become washed up on the shores of Kumo?" As Shinku blinks in bewilderment, Mei responds, "War. Kurogakure is in the midst of a civil war called the Kekkei Genkei Purge," she says after finishing the fruit. Their eyes widen when she replied, "It was ordered by our current Mizukage, who believes that bloodlines are the reasons why we have wars and wants to get rid of them by purifying our village." That is awful. Is he murdering people with bloodlines because he thinks they are to blame for the ongoing conflicts? It's sick and unjust to innocent people. She looks at the ground as Naruto sighs and responds, "That's just how the ninja world is, sis. I understand, but still." She protests, "It's not fair," and Naruto nods, turning back to face Mei. "Mei-san, do all the nin from Kiri oppose the genocide? Is it true that half of them formed a rebel army to fight the Mizukage?" he asks. "The majority of them belong to bloodline clans, but some are with clans without bloodlines." She responds, "I happen to be part of the rebels." At that moment, there was a thunderclap. Naruto used a few hand seals, and the surrounding area glowed and turned into a barrier. "I made a chakra barrier that'll keep the bad weather out," Mei says, blinking as she feels the chakra spike and turns to face Naruto. Keeping it active requires a lot of chakra, so it's not as simple as it seems. "Fortunately, I installed some interconnected seals that surround us with a double-layered barrier," he says. Because Fuinjutsu was a very hard art to learn and only a few people knew it, Mei could only say, "Wow. Yeah, I've always been fascinated with Fuinjutsu. It might be said that it runs in my family." When a sandal flies past his head, he ducks, saying, "Shut up, Aniki. Shinku here is also good with Fuinjutsu, but she's not close to my level." He stuck his tongue out at her as she remarked, "I'm still better than you at water jutsu." "That's because I learned offensive techniques from Kakashi ni-san, while you learned defensive techniques from Ka-san. So nya. Anyway, our patrol mission is over tomorrow morning," he says, catching the second sandal as she screams and then pouts at him while crossing her arms over her chest. "Jerk." She mumbles, and he laughs. She nods as he says, "We'll take you over to the Raikage's tower and you can explain everything to him." "Will I be allowed to go back to Kiri, my rebel base?" She says, "Sure if that's what you want to do, but do you honestly think that you can beat the Mizukage with a few rebels and bloodline users? I don't want to involve a neutral village like Kumo in our county's situation." He says, "It's possible that they outnumber you in your rebellion. He has Chunin, Junin, Enbu, and Hunter Nin in his forces." She frowns. Naruto shakes his head, saying, "Yes, you do have a choice." She responds, "I have no other choice. Have patience." Mei clenches her fists and looks at the ground. "You'll just be leading those who believe in you to an early grave, Mei-san, and you know my brother's right." Shiku responds, leaning back on her futon. "If you try to pull a kamikaze attack against the Mizukage and his forces, they'll wipe you out before you can even enter the village gates. Look, Mei-san, I'm pretty sure the Raikage would love to help you out if you ask," Naruto says, yawning and leaning back his futon as well. He has been searching for allies for some time, and he is an excellent Kage. He says, "I'm sure he would like to make one once the civil war in Kiri is over." She considers it. "Are you certain I can trust the Raikage?" she asks, and Naruto grins as he looks at her. "Yes, in my view. He is a man of honor, but he can also be impulsive and uninformed most of the time." She blinks at him as he responds, "What is your relationship with the Raikage? It's something you don't see in most ninja because of our lifestyle." Her eyes enlarge to the size of dinner plates as she asks, "I'm his former apprentice." "Eh? Apprentice?" Naruto shrugged as she said, but you don't even wear a headband representing Kumo." "I understand." Mei's mouth drops as he responds, "Well, you might want to get some sleep, Mei-san." Naruto looks at her and laughs. "My Ka-san, Shinku, and a few others work for him as ninjas for hire. We're returning to the Raikage Tower tomorrow so you can speak with him." He says, "Oh, and if you can ignore the antics of his younger brother." He then nods off. "I don't know why, but for some reason I feel like I can trust him. You are a very interesting person, Naruto," Mei thought before falling asleep, blinking for a few minutes before laying back and closing her eyes in the hopes that the boy, no young man, was correct and could help her save her village and country, because if he did, she would be forever indebted to him. Good morning. When Naruto opened his eyes, he saw Shinku snoring softly and drooling a little. He also noticed Hitomi sleeping on top of her bared torso in her fox form. Naruto laughed at this and noticed Mei's chest rising and falling while she slept. Hitomi stirred, blinked a few times, and yawned. When she looked up, she saw Naruto grinning at her. After seeing Mei's sleeping form, she jumped off of Shinku and walked towards Mei until she was only a few inches from her face before beginning to lick her cheek. When the vixen does this, Mei yells and giggles, opens her eyes, and sees an eye. Smiling fox yipping at her. Mei then sits up, picks Hitomi up, and places her on her lap. "Hey, hello. Are you friends with this young man?" she asks as she rubs her behind the ear, getting a purr from the fox. Naruto chuckles and speaks up. Her name is Hitomi. She smiles at the purring fox as he says, "She hasn't left me since she followed me home when I finished training." Don't be fooled by her innocent appearance. Hitomi glares at him and he gives her a mocking glare, saying, "Don't you glare at me, little thief." He wags his finger in front of her, and she gives him the puppy eye look. "Ah, kawaii," Mei says, as Hitomi looks up at her and yips. And she's a trickster who will steal anything shiny or pretty that she sees. He doesn't pay any attention to you and is cruel. The vixen nods as she says that. "You poor thing. How could you be so cruel to something so adorable, Naruto?" Mei asks as she held Hitomi in front of him and she grins at the blonde whose brow was twitching in size. He then takes Hitomi from a pouting Mei and places the yipping fox on his shoulder. "Come on, you sly vixen. We will go get some food." Her eyes were now filled with stars as he said, "I'll catch you a rabbit if you behave." Shinku wakes up and stretches after Naruto shunshins out of the tent after putting on his sandals. She glances around the tent and sees Mei. "Good morning, Mei-san. Where are Hitomi and Naruto?" Then they went to get us some breakfast, she asks. "Are there any clothes you think I could wear?" Shinku nods in response to her question as she takes a scroll from her duffel bag and opens it to reveal a black long-sleeved shirt and shorts that appear to fall past her knees. As she pulls off the covers, she removes her shirt and shorts, revealing a matching blue bra and panties underneath. She says, "These should work," and places them next to her. "Thanks," she says, pulling the shirt down over her head and putting on the long shorts. "The shirt isn't too tight, is it?" Mei pulls her long hair back and ties it back while shaking her head in response to Shinku's question. "No, you're welcome," she says, and Shinku smiles. "Thanks for the extra clothes. Tell me, Mei-san, how old you are?" "Why am I 22? She asks. "Well, I just wanted to let you know that my brother, he has a thing for older women," she says, causing Mei's eyes to widen as the redhead giggles. "What? Why older women? Is he not a pervert?" she asks as she narrows her eyes and her brow twitches. "Heh. He isn't a pervert. No, Naruto respects women, but not shallow or snobbish ones. He is a good man. He avoids them." Mei blinked at Shinku as he explained that he prefers older women because they are more mature than those his own age. "Oh, is it because older women are more mature that he likes them? But what is he, 14? 15? She asks and Shinku nods. "Yeah, next year, we'll both be 15 years old. So, do you have a boyfriend?" Mei asks. Shinku rubs the back of her head and blushes. "Me? No, the last boy who tried to grope me ended up with all 4 of his limbs broken and sterile for the rest of his life, primarily because my brother is extremely protective of me," she says with a smile. Mei gawked at him, her eyes now the size of dinner plates. "Wow," she says, "you're very fortunate to have a brother like him," and Shinku nods. "Yes, I am. However, he can occasionally be annoying, particularly when he plays practical jokes." She twitches her brow and says, "One time he switched my shampoo with orange hair dye." Mei giggles as she says, "You seem to have an interesting family." "Yeah. You'll need to keep an eye on yourself around Kakashi.ni, but just wait until you meet my mom and the others." Mei's brow twitches as she says, "He's a closet pervert." When Kakashi sneezed on the page of his book while reading it back at the Namikaze home, anime tears fell from his eyes, and he threw a fit, thrashing his arms and legs in a chibi fashion. "No, ICHA Paradise Volume 3 Feed S Autograph Limited Edition is ruined," he lets out a cry. As soon as Anko, Yugo, and Rin saw this, they started to perspire. "What the devil is wrong with your boyfriend Rin?" When he began crying over his baby with a gray cloud hanging over his head, Yugo's sweat drop grew larger. "Senpai just keeps getting weirder and weirder every day." Anko asks, and Rin twitches when she sees the book. "I have no clue," she says. Kushina entered at that point and said, "Hey Mina, I'm Ba. Hey, what's wrong with Kakashi? Why is he in mourning over the book by Eeyore?" Senin? She asks, pointing a finger at the morning copy Nin. The three women shrug. We have no idea. Say, when will Shin, Chan and Yondaime Chibi return? Enko pouts and says, I miss the blonde-haired cutie. Kushina moans, Yugo makes mistakes, and Rin perspires. Enko's eyes brightened when Kushina said, they should be home today, Enko. Yugo stood up and looked at Enko, asking, are you still attempting to jump Naruto, Enko? She says, he's 14 and you're 23, for crying out loud, and Enko shrugs. So what? He is a ninja. You're old enough to engage in adult activities like having sex if you're old enough to kill, says Enko. You're hopeless, Enko. Yugo says, and Rin nods. Oh please Yugo. I've seen you check out his ass when you think no one's looking. Kakashi bursts out laughing when he hears the word, sex. Enko smirks as she says this. Rin, Kushina, and Kakashi all stare at her in disbelief. The female swordsman says, shush. She's lying, sensei. You know how Enko is. Her face turns pink. Enko smiled more broadly. Rin's and Kushina's jaws drop as she coos. Oh please Yugo. I even hear you mumble his name, calling him Naruto.kun. Yugo's face darkened, and she growled, Enko. Shut up. It's true. She even mumbled about how long his sword is. She responds. Yugo's face lit up red as she performed the large demon head jutsu. Her words were, I was referring to his blade, you pervert. She said, sure you were, but don't feel embarrassed. I'm sure he'd let you play with his sword. However, she had to dodge a sword slash that cut some of her hair, and after Yugo chased after her with her katana in her hand and her eyes glowing red, Enko fled the house laughing. She shouted, come back here, Enko Midarashi. I'll show you what I can do with a sword, and the others' heads were dripping with perspiration. Rin nods as Kushina murmurs, her mouth is gonna get her killed one of these days. After rubbing the back of his head, Kakashi comes up behind Rin and whispers something in her ear, causing her eyes to widen and her face to flush. She gives him a playful shoulder slap and says, you hentai. However, she erupts when he takes her away in bridal fashion and shuns her to their room. Kushina sighs and her forehead quivers. She mumbles, I need a boyfriend, and makes her way to the kitchen. A dead boar tied to a long pike was being carried by two clones as Naruto made his way back to the camp with 2 bags full of wild berries and herbs. In her hybrid form, Hitomi was smiling as she walked backwards in front of Naruto. He nods when she says, you know Naruto.kun, you should tell your family about us soon. I plan on it, Hitomi. Chan, just not right now. I'll tell them after we help Mei save her village and deal with the Yondaime Mizukage. So do you think it's possible for Madara to use his eyes on you again? I know that Teme was capable of doing it twice and the second time he was in his weakened state. But what's got me worried was even in his weakened state, I still couldn't beat him. If he was that strong when he was weak, I don't want to know how strong he was when he was whole. He responds with a frown. I agree. The only good Uchiha is dead one in my opinion. They have been nothing but trouble, especially for me and my kin. They're power-hungry, arrogant, self-centered bastards who would kill even their loved ones for more power. Madara is a prime example. He took the eyes of his own brother just to gain his sight back. That is sick. I may be a demon, but even I wouldn't do something like that. Taking the eyes of a sibling. Disgusting. She speaks and Naruto nods. No kidding, but the only Uchiha I will ever respect is Itachi and Obito. Obito saved Kakashi. Sans life by giving up his own. Itachi may have been cold and odd, but at least he isn't a traitor. I still can't believe that in my time, he let himself die by Sasuke's hand just so that brat can be a hero for killing the traitor and murderer of the Uchiha clan. Hey, if only Konoha knew that they were gonna do a coup to overthrow the Sandaime, he says, and Hitomi nods. Then there is Orochimaru, Kabuto, and Danzo and his root. I need to kill either one of them soon. I'll probably have to deal with Danzo first, especially when he has those Sharingans and the Shoden cells implanted into his right arm and eye. I swear that Izanagi technique was a pain to deal with. But then there is Orochimaru and his infatuation with the cursed bloodline. He growls and his eternal Mangekyo Sharingan flashes and spins for a few seconds before his eyes return to normal. That parasitic body snatcher has to be dealt with also. I don't even want to think about what he would do if he finds out about Shinku. Hitomi grinned as she saw them. You know Naruto.kun, whenever I see your eternal Mangekyo Sharingan I can't help but be drawn to them. Unlike Madara's, whose eyes reeked of malice and evil, yours show compassion, warmth, and purity even when you're angry. So how far are you in learning the abilities from those eyes you gained when you absorbed Madara and Sasuke's power from your timeline? She inquires. Naruto says, rubbing his chin thoughtfully. Well, I can use Tsukuyomi for at least 120 hours and 4 days. I can also summon the flames of Amaterasu and dissipate the flames. Kamui is a little difficult to control, send my aim has to be precise like Kakashi's, otherwise I just be wasting chakra. I can't summon Susanoo yet, but I'm working on it. Madara's teleporting technique is very tough to use. I have to keep my concentration firm or else I'll end up tearing apart my body, so that'll definitely take a while to master. The techniques I gained from Sasuke were easy to learn. I managed to upgrade Chidori to Raikage and use their variant forms. I can say this about Sasuke. He was a genius when it came to making variant forms of original techniques. Too bad he grew evil, otherwise I would have respected him as a rival. Hell, what impressed was when I learned how to use Kirin. I have to say, that's one hell of a jutsu he created, especially since he used real lightning with the attack. That right there takes a lot of skill and patience to master. Hell, Kakashi would have a heart attack if he found out about that technique. He'd probably give up Ika just to learn it. He said with a grin, knowing about the copy nin Kakashi hundreds of jutsu in his arsenal. He probably would. Naruto.kun, say you said that in your timeline that you absorbed the soul and powers of the Juubi, right? He replies with a nod. He considers her question, so how many tails can you control now? Right now at least 4 tails. I don't like to rely on it because of how dense and potent the chakra is. While it doesn't destroy my body, I will end up completely exhausted and it'll take me a while to recover. But the good thing about it is that I have 2 chakra sources and can switch them at will, since the jutsu I use with Juubi's chakra will make them more powerful and cause more damage. He states, and she displays a look of awe on her face. She asks, so would that make you the new Juubi, or are you still a Jinchuriki? Naruto ponders while gazing up at the sky. Honestly Hitomi, I never thought about my status as a Jinchuriki or the new Juubi. It's possible that I'm the Juubi in a way since its soul merged with mine. He responds and she nods. Hitomi transformed into her kit form and jumped on Naruto's shoulder as they abruptly approached the camp. Naruto spoke while glancing at the clones. Prepare a fire and begin skinning the boar, taking care to keep the tusks and fur clean. After you've finished gutting it, take out the parts we won't be eating and dispose of them in a forest. He says, I don't need predators and scavengers getting into our camp, and they nod as they drop the pike. Draw out some blades, and begin working on the boar. Naruto opens the bag and finds a dead rabbit. Here Hitomi. He says, and she yips and takes the rabbit, running off with it into the forest so she can eat it in peace. Naruto laughs and enters the tent carrying the fruit bag, saying, hey you guys, I'm back. Eniki, is that all you have? Shinku asks and Naruto shakes his head. No, as Shinku reaches into the bag and takes out 2 apples and a mango. He says, I have some clones outside skinning and disemboweling a boar outside. Who wants the mango? Shinku inquires, and Naruto extends his hand before she throws it to him. Naruto takes it as she gives Mei the second apple. After Shinku's cheeks swell and she squirts the apple with water, Mei follows suit, and Naruto uses a water jutsu to peel the skin off the mango before they begin to eat it until Naruto interrupts, saying, hey Imoudo. Yeah. As she bites into the apple, she responds, how are you doing with the Rasengan's elemental manipulation? He draws Mei's attention to the jutsu that won the last battle by asking. Not very far. I'm halfway through the wind manipulation part. I need to find a way to control it and keep it balanced, otherwise I'd end up blowing my hand off, she says, and Naruto nods. The manipulation of pure chakra is tough enough, but adding your affinity and stabling it is even tougher. Shinku shudders at the prospect of losing an arm. They both smile as Mei remarks, so you two are working on mastering your father's technique. Interesting. Yeah, that would be amazing. Iwa would have a heart attack if they found out that the children of their most hated enemy improved one of his jutsu. I'm also working on making different versions of the Rasengan. I made one that's based off a windmill shuriken and one where it's a larger version of the Rasengan. Another one I'm creating is based off of a drill. Mei's jaw drops when Naruto replies. Did he create variants of the Yondaime's method? Shinku laughs at her response. Don't be so shocked Mei-san, I'm also making my own versions of the Rasengan, though mine are based more on speed than strength. Right now I'm working on one that I can use for long distance. Kind of like how the puppet users in Suna use their puppets, she continues. Mei appeared to be about to faint before speaking. She asks, if I may ask, how strong are you two? And Naruto responds. Me, I'm at low to mid Anbu level while Shinku is around low to mid Junin level. We just lack the experience they have. If we go all out I'm around High Anbu and she is High Junin. He says and Mei looks at him with amazement. Back in Kumo, the Lightning Brothers sneeze as Naruto declares, our mom and other members of our family trained us to the ground. That and the Raikage and his brother are psychos when it came to physical training. Naruto smiles at Mei as she asks, if I may ask, if I were to fight you both would I win? She smiles back at him as he responds, yeah you would since you have more experience than us, but we can give you a run for your money. Well, at least you're humble about it. Most teenagers your age wouldn't be this strong, and if they were, they'd gloat about it. She responds with a nod. Then Naruto detects the smell of charred meat. It appears that my clones have finished the boar. As he exits the tent, he observes the skinless boar being roasted over a flame on a pike, with one clone cleaning the fur skin and the other cleaning the tusks it removed from the boar's head. I'll be back, Shinku, Mei-san, he says. When Hitomi emerged from the bushes and began licking her muzzle, which was covered in rabbit blood, Naruto smirked and said, I assume you liked that rabbit? He chuckles as she gives him a look, lets out a belch, and her muzzle turns pink. He says, I'll take that as a yes. She gives him a glare, which he finds endearing. She yips and her ears drop as he says, you know no one will take that glare seriously, Hitomi. Chan. It makes you look like an angry puppy. Naruto strokes her head and chuckles at her behavior. While he picks her up and rests her on his shoulders, he says, none of that now, Tomi. Chan. Then, as he caresses the side of her neck and observes the boar cooking, she licks him on the cheek. Naruto opens a small scroll that he has taken out. A pair of plates with knives and forks emerge in a puff of smoke. With a knife in hand, Naruto slices into the boar, removing tiny chunks of cooked meat to put on each plate. Naruto enters the tent once more, using the 3 plates. With a cheeky smile, he asks, who wants boar steak? After rolling her eyes, Shinku takes 2 of them and gives Mei the other. Mei takes the knife and fork, cuts a small piece off with the knife, and places it on a fork, saying, this smells great. After raising the fork to her mouth, she bites into the warm, tender meat, chews for a while, and then swallows it. She begins to eat more of the steak after saying, this is good. Shinku says, yeah. I prefer this over deer meat. Naruto nods. Naruto laughs at the memory, saying, no kidding. Hey, remember when Anko and Yugo took us on that survival trip and you ate those glowing mushrooms? Shinku's whole body glowed green for 3 days before she fell into a poison ivy bush and developed rashes all over. She then accidentally ate green berries, which caused her skin to break out and swell like a balloon. On their last day, she also unintentionally picked up a skunk and got sprayed. Never in his life had Naruto laughed so much. Shinku huffed and glared at her brother's snickering. Naruto chuckles at the recollection as she murmurs, that was the worst survival trip ever. I have never felt so humiliated in all my life. Oh man, what a trip. Anko would never let you live it down. You know she still has the pictures, right? He inquires and she appears pale. When she exclaims, what, I thought she got rid of them, Naruto shakes his head. He says, Shinku, this is Anko we're talking about. You know she's a prankster like me, only worse. I still can't believe you picked up that skunk. Mom had to leave you out in the backyard for a whole week. She blushes in frustration and shame. She screamed, I was 8 for crying out loud and I thought it was a cat. But Naruto continued to laugh. He recalls the incident in his mind and says, Imouto please. That's the lamest excuse ever. Even I know the difference between a weasel and a cat. I'm so glad I bolted out of there before you realized what it was. Rewind. Shinku and Naruto, both 8 years old, had finished their survival trip and were now packing their equipment. In order to ensure that there was nothing left for the wildlife to eat, Anko and Yugo were tidying up the camp. Shinku saw something black, white, and furry after placing an empty oil lamp in her pack. When Naruto heard Shinku, he had just finished burying some leftover bones on the ground. She exclaimed, Hey Aniki, look what I found. With a groan, Naruto approached his sister, who was facing away. What is it this time, Shinku, and please don't tell me it's poison ivy? He inquires. She turns around and smiles while holding a black and white cat in her arms, saying, No, I found a cat. Naruto takes a step back as his eyes enlarge. He slowly backs away and says, That's not cat, Shinku, and please put it down slowly. With a bewildered blink, Shinku moves forward. She responds, What's wrong? It's just a cat. However, Naruto immediately leaves the area while yelling about a skunk. Holding the skunk away from her face, Shinku blinks. When she asks the cat, What's a skunk? It wags its tail and gives her a menacing smile. Shinku blinks once more before her eyes enlarge. She said, Oh, before it was too late. To get Enko and Yugo's attention, Naruto ran over to them and tugged on their pant legs. Enko asks, "What's up, Yondaime?" "Chibi." And a tick mark shows up on his head. "Kya!" screamed Shinku, "Don't call me that. You. Chan." Shinku just picked up a. Their eyes widened as he said, "Skunk." They then moved to where Shinku screams. They arrived to find Shinku coughing and wiping her eyes while engulfed in a green mist. A whiff of the skunk scent caused Enko to abruptly back away, holding on to her mouth and nose as her eyes twitched and watered. The female swordsman had a hand over her mouth, and Naruto was hiding behind Yugo, his shirt covering half of his face. "Oh sweet Kami. Shinku, what the hell were you thinking picking up a skunk?" Enko inquires. Shinku continues to rub her eyes and says, "Cough cough, I thought it was a cat." "You thought it was a cat? Oh great, first the glowing mushrooms, then the poison ivy, now a skunk. What's next? You're gonna play fetch with a wolf?" She laughs. As Naruto screams, "Don't jinx it, Enko." Shinku gives him a stern look and crosses her arms. "Kami Kushina. Sensei is gonna strangle me when we come back with the skunk princess." Enko murmurs. She turns to see Yugo and Naruto gone, leaving a dust trail, and a tick mark appears on Enko's head. "So who's gonna take her?" she asks. She shakes her fist and yells, "Oi, get back here you cowards. Don't you leave me here with Ms. Le Pew." The flashback concludes Mei was laughing and clutching her sides by the time Naruto had finished discussing the incident. Shinku wanted to choke her older brother at the moment, and her face matched the color of her hair. Naruto smiled as she muttered, "I hate you, Iniki." Mei laughed even harder when he said, "Love you too, Imoudo. Did I mention that Ka.San made her stay outside in the backyard for a week?" She yells, "That's it, you're dead, Iniki," and throws him from the tent. After some time of rolling over on the ground, Shinku was now on top of him. At the moment, Naruto was holding her wrists away from his neck while he laughed. At that moment, two Kumo Anbu showed up, and everyone started to perspire. They looked up when the person wearing the lion mask coughed to get their attention. As Naruto got up and dusted off his trousers, Shinku blushed because she was wearing no shirt and fled back into the tent. "Can we help you, Shishi-san?" Naruto asks. Naruto nods as Shishi, the lion, says, "We were sent here to inform you that your border patrol is done and that a different squad of Junin will be taking your place." The two Anbu shunshin away as Naruto says, "Thanks. We'll be leaving soon." Mei assisted the Namikaze siblings in clearing the camp. Mei followed them as they packed up and made their way back to Kumogakure. To keep the men in the village from staring at Mei's chest, Naruto had given her a black flak jacket. Some of the locals and ninja welcomed Naruto and Shinku as they passed through the village. Mei saw Naruto and spoke with him. Naruto laughs as she remarks, "You two are pretty popular with the citizens of this village. I think it's due to the pranks I played when I was younger and when I was training with the Raikage and his Oto-Uto. When me and my family got here, the place was dull, but when I came, well, let's just say that the village hasn't gotten boring, especially when the Raikage sent Junin and Anbu after me whenever I prank him or certain members of his council. But I can say this about the civilian and shinobi council members. They can take a joke better than those stuck-up snobs that live in Konoha." He continues and Mei raises an eyebrow. Shinku became irritated and started talking. She smiled and said, "Aniki, do we have to walk to the tower? Why don't we just shunshin there unless you're hoping to run into Yugi Chan or Samui Chan?" Naruto glares at his Imoudo and flushes. Unaware of Mei's blush from the contact, he takes her hand and says, "Shut up." They shunshin to the tower. Tower of Raikage with his chin resting in his hand and a bored expression on his face. He was presently performing arm curls with a dumbbell in his right arm. "Why did I accept this dull job once more? I'm incredibly bored after spending the last 3 hours performing arm curl ups. When you need Karabi, where is he?" Until Naruto, Shinku, and a woman with rusty hair showed up in his office, he thought, "At least I get a good workout with him or Kushina." When he notices them, he blinks before dropping the dumbbell, which makes the office tremble and makes Naruto perspire. With a smile on his face, Naruto asks, "Bored Raikage Sensei?" And the man's brow furrows. When he sees Naruto looking pale, he smirks and raises his arms in defense, saying, "Shut it Gaki unless you want to be my sparring partner for the next 4 hours." He was aware of I's strength in the past, but he could never hope to defeat him in his current condition. The man had strength comparable to, if not equal to, that of a Jinchuriki, and he could use just one arm or leg to split a small mountain in half. He has even witnessed the man use only his headbutt to dent steel plates. Even without the power of his Biju, Kurabi was equally terrible. When they defeated Kisame in the Fourth Shinobi War, he witnessed firsthand how strong these two individuals were. The last two you would ever want to encounter on the battlefield. The man snorts as he says, "Sorry sensei, but I like living and not having my bones broken." Cheeky brat. So would you like to explain to me who your companion is? He inquires. He looks at the anxious woman as Shinku explains. Oh, this is Mei Terumi, a kunoichi from Kirigakure. She washed up on the shoreline near the border and stayed with us since. He asks Mei, who nods. I see. Isn't Kirigakure in the middle of a civil war right now? Yes. I'm a part of the rebel group. The Yondaime Mizukage and his elite guards were on a ship and my group made an attempt to raid the ship, capture if not kill the man, but he expected yous to pull that stunt. The last thing I saw before I blacked out was him being covered in some kind of chakra cloak, but it was more potent and in a way sinister. She says, causing their eyes to widen. With wide eyes, Naruto says, Mei-san, it's possible that the Mizukage is a Jinchuriki. A Jinchuriki. Oh Kami. No wonder I couldn't face him. He's a container for a Biju, she whispers quietly. Yep. There aren't a lot of nin out there that could fight, let alone beat a Jinchuriki. Unless of course you had the abilities of the Shodem Hokage, or you're also a vessel who has a stronger Biju. Like me. I'm the vessel for the Kyuubi no Kitsune. Naruto says as her eyes widen in disbelief. But unlike the Mizukage's Biju, me and Kyuubi are on good terms despite the fact that it was my dad that sealed her into me. Kumo also have two vessels living here and they too get along with their Biju. Naruto says and Mei simply looks at them. To get her attention, he coughs. My Deshi is right. My Otouto and my adopted daughter contain Bijus and they cooperate with each other to secure their survival. He states and she simply nods. I see. Raikage. Sama, I know this is asking a lot and I don't want to involve you with Kiri's situation, but I was hoping that if it was possible for you to aid the rebel side in the war. We are mostly clans with bloodlines and some are regular Junin or former Anbu. She asks and he raises an eyebrow. She sighs in frustration as he asks, you're asking a neutral nation to support you in a conflict in which we have no stake? Do you realize that this action could spark another great shinobi war? Yes, but what choice do I have? We're being hunted non-stop and half of our forces are already gone. We can't keep this up and it's only a matter of time before the Mizukage decides to purify the other nations that have bloodline users. She responds and he takes a deep breath. It's possible that could happen. Kumo would most likely be the first since we're a lot closer than Konoha is, and I will not let that ignorant fool the Mizukage try to pull that stunt. This is a lot to think about, Mei-san. I'll allow you to stay in Kumo until I make my decision. Do you need lodging for the time being? Mei was about to respond when Naruto intervened. Shinku nods in agreement as Naruto states, she'll stay with us for now, Raikage. Sama. My mother won't mind. Mei says, are you sure? I don't want to impose, but Naruto dismisses her. She blinks in confusion as he says, don't worry, we have plenty of room, but a little warning. Keep you distance from Anko. After giggling, Shinku takes her hand and pushes her away. He shunshuns away as well, saying, see Yae-sensei and try not to put another human-shaped hole in the wall. He mumbles that he gets annoyed by blonde, cocky brats. The door was kicked off its hinge at that point, and although it hits E's head, he is unfazed. It bounces off his head, leaving a tick mark on the cage's head. With a smile on his face, Kurabi begins to rap. Big bro, Kurabi and Yugito ni have completed the mission, yo. He continues. Kurabi's brow twitches and she gets a tick mark on her head as Yugito kicks him in the back of the head. She shouted, shut up with the stupid rhymes. I'm surprised he hasn't killed you yet. As Hachibi was in the mindscape of his container, pleading with the man to end his suffering and claiming that Kurabi's rapping was a worse fate than death. While cleaning his face of the debris from the door, he muttered, please don't encourage me, Yugito. A smile spreads across her face as she takes a whiff of the air. Naruto and Shinku have been here, right? She inquires. He nods, but before he could respond, Flame Shunshin took his adopted daughter away. I swear she can't go one day without playing with that boy. He replies. Kurabi chuckles and raises her voice. The tick mark on E's head grew even larger as he asked, the fox like to play with the cat? What up with that? Thanks to E, Kurabi was spotted flying across the village 10 seconds later. Sweat drops form on the faces of Karui, Omio, and Samui as they witness this. They hear them scream pervert, see the man land in a hot spring bathhouse on the women's side, hear Kurabi being beaten, and see their perspiration growing. The three kunoichi shake their heads in response to Omoi's question, should we go help him? She cracks her neck and says, "Nope. I'm going to go find Naruto-kun. My neck and back are sore." Karui sucks on a lollipop from Omoi's bag after robbing her eyes. "Did you take the last strawberry-flavored one?" he inquires. The sucker was blue when she took it out of her mouth. As she heads to the hot spring to save her sensei, he says, "Go ahead and keep it. I hate blueberry," and leaves. Mei, Shinku, and Naruto were making their way to the Namikaze estate through the Kumo forest when Naruto halted and grinned. Before Shinku could respond, Naruto shunshins away, and she lets out a frustrated sigh. "Hey Shinku." Chanyu and Mei-san head back to the compound. "I remembered I needed to do something important," he says. She says, "Baka. Come on Mei-san." Mei looks at the redhead and blinks. She follows Shinku and asks, "Where is he going?" As they make their way to the Namikaze compound, she murmurs, "You don't want to know." Yugito was sitting on a tree branch in the forest, waiting for an opportunity to attack Naruto, when he abruptly shunshins away, and she is shocked that she didn't notice him. Suddenly, Naruto comes up behind her and pinches the cheeks of her ass. Yugito jumps to her feet, blushing, and eeps. With a growl, she makes a fist out of her right hand and spins around, preparing to knock Naruto out cold. She began to say, "Naruto, you damn pervert, I'm gonna," but she stopped when she noticed that no one was there. She was about to say, "What the?" I could have sworn he was. When she felt two arms encircle her waist, she looked down to see they belonged to Naruto. He says, "Hey Kitty, Chan, and let's go of her." She crosses her arms over her chest and murmurs, "How do you keep doing that?" He grins and says, "I'm just that good." This makes her sulk. "You're so lucky you're cute, damn it." Naruto throws his head back, hugs her, and gives her a quick peck on the tongue. He says, "You're lucky you're so damn sexy, Yubi Chan." She smiles and flashes her canines in response. Her question is met with a kiss. "Love you to Foxy, so are you gonna head home or keep holding me like this?" She asks. He questioned the ship for the Nibby. "You were gonna try to pounce me, weren't you?" He chuckled when she pouted and said, "I was, but you ruined it." Yugito smiles and nods before saying, "No need to pout, Yugi. Hime. How's about I take you out for sushi after you meet Mei-san?" With a question, "Who's Mei?" A Kiri Junin we found unconscious near the shores of Kumo during border patrol. "She's staying with us until further notice. Why?" he inquires. She murmurs, "No reason." "What is it with you and older women?" As he releases her, he says, "Hey, you're only 3 years older than me and so is Samui-chan." She asks, "What about Anko and Yugo?" "Anko's not that bad. Okay, maybe she is since she's been trying to jump me and make me her plaything since I was 13. Yugo-chan is normally quiet and I can be around her and not fear for my virginity." He responded as she laughed. When he asked, "Did Anko have her way with you yet?" Naruto blushed. He shuddered and said, "She almost did, and if it wasn't for Rin.Ne-chan I would have been scarred for life." Yugito laughed at him. She hugged him and crooned, "Aw, you poor thing. Must have been a traumatic experience for you." He looked up at Yugito using the puppy eyes jutsu and muttered, "And now I have to head back home and fear for my innocence again." Naruto asks, "You'll protect me from her, won't you, Yugi Hime?" Yugito's smile widened and his cheeks began to pinch. She cooed, "You look like a sad puppy when you pout," but eeps when he releases Naruto by pinching her ass once more. Said blonde smile and flees, followed by a furious and irate Yugito. She screamed at the laughing and running blonde, "Come back here and face me like a ninja, you damn pervert." In the meantime, after visiting the Namikaze estate, Shinku and Mei reported that Kiri Kunoichi was impressed. She said, "Wow. This is a nice compound." As they approach the door and are ready to open it, she says, "Thanks. The Raikage gave it to us as a welcome gift even though we aren't ninja for his village." Suddenly, a red-faced, irate Yugito leaps out of nowhere with her clawed gauntlet drawn, and Naruto appears in front of them, grinning. She walked slowly toward them, saying, "Come here, you pervert, so I can use you as a scratching post." Shinku intervened in an attempt to defuse the situation. She said to Naruto, who was performing the raspberry, "Whoa now, Yugi. I know Naruto should pay for whatever he did to you, but let's not forget you started it, and Aniki, stop being a pervert or I'll tell Ka-san." Naruto stopped and went pale when she said she would tell their mother, but she then glared at her. "Tell, and I'll tell her who's been going downstairs at night and stealing her private dango stash, and we both know it's not Anko since she knows better," he replies with a pale face. She mumbles, "Fine. Jerk." Yugito puts away her weapons, and Naruto approaches the door before pausing and rolling his eyes. "Hey, you guys might want to step away from the door," he issued a warning. Mei is left perplexed as Shinku and Yugito move aside, but Shinku yanks her aside and instructs her to just watch. When Naruto opens the door and rolls his eyes, a blur throws him to the ground. They roll away for a while before stopping to see Anko sitting on top of Naruto, smiling. "Did you miss me, Yanadime? Chibi? I missed you," she says, getting an irked look from Naruto, who smirks and puffs away. Anko blinks in confusion only to see the real Naruto between Shinku and Yugito with an M wrapped around their shoulders. Anko pouts and folds her arms. "Damn it," she mumbles, "I was so close to getting my hands on you," and turns to face the ground. Naruto laughs and takes his arms off their shoulders before coming up behind Anko, leaning into her ear and whispering a few words that cause her eyes to widen and her face to flush. Naruto gestures for the others to enter while he speaks to Anko, and after Shinku leads them inside, Naruto puts his arms around her. "I'm flattered that you would be interested in me despite our different ages, Anko. What, then, caused you to feel this way about me?" She blushes a little and fidgets as he asks. "Well, whatever. You see, to be honest, it kind of just happened," she clarified. "I've seen how you treat Yugo-chan, that Yugito girl, and those other three, and I understand. But, you know, we also have fun." She laughs a little at the comment, but he continues, "I mean, you're a great prankster and I love teasing you, and you are hot in your own way, even though you tried to make me into a man that day you were drunk. I recall. That day, your mother was prepared to murder me." As he let her go and assisted her in standing up, he muttered, "At least she didn't make you go through 4 hours of kenjutsu training with her." Then she winced and grabbed her left shoulder, saying, "Hey, sorry." Naruto scowled, made her kneel down, and pulled her arm and part of her trench coat away, revealing the 3 tomo marks on her, which were pulsing. Wait, Naruto, don't look it," she began, but he interrupted. "A seal of curse. I once saw a picture of it from Ero. Senin. Has the situation gotten worse?" She nods and hisses in agony as he asks. Anko's eyes widen as she no longer feels pain and turns to face Naruto, who carefully removes his hand from the seal after channeling some of Juubi's chakra into it to stop it from pulsing. "Damn painkillers don't even work anymore," she mumbles and turns away. She began to ask, "How did you?" but he smirked. Naruto holds out his hand and reveals a piece of paper with several seals on it, saying, "I used this. It's a compression seal that can be used to seal off foreign chakra, according to what Ero Senin taught me." As Anko glomps him and kisses his cheek, he thinks, that should help for now, and helps her up again. That and Juubi's chakra is keeping it in check. "Many thanks, Naruto-kun." She smiles mischievously and says, "I'll have to thank you later on today." She shivers as Naruto smirks and releases her hug, saying, "I think you want to do more than thank me, Anko-chan, and remember I can't do anything serious, yet." He then gives her a firm squeeze and rubs her butt with his hand. She follows him into the compound as he says, "Let's go in." As they entered, Naruto noticed that Kakashi was leaning against the wall and grinning at him while his mother was chatting with Mei, Yugito, and Shinku on the living room couch. What, under his mask, Naruto's surrogate brother was smiling when he asked him this question. "Naruto, you have no idea how proud I am of you. Bringing elderly women home." Sniffle, he says, removing a fictitious tear from his eye, "They grow up so fast." Rin slapped him across the head for his response, growling, "Shut it, you, or you're gonna get reacquainted with the couch again." Kakashi started to perspire a little. Hey. Let me see if there's anything we need for the compound." With a red-faced Naruto shouting, "Shut up," he dismisses him, saying, "And Naruto, remember the talk we had and be sure to use protection." That jerk. "Oh hey Ka-san," he muttered, hoping to get his attention by hearing his mother cough. "I swear one day I'm gonna kick his ass. How have you found the day so far?" Look, mothers give their sons when they bring a girl home. Or, in her son's case, a woman, made him a little uneasy when he asked. He slumps his shoulders as she says, "It was fine until you brought another female home with you." "Oh my god, Ka-san. I never imagined that Shinku and I would discover her hardly alive close to the coast." She stared at him for a long time and sighed as he said, "Plus, I couldn't leave her out there." Her son nodded as she muttered, "If Ero Senin was here, he'd be having a field day with all the females in the house." He grinned slightly as she blushed and scowled at her little brother, adding, "Too true. Kakashi.ni.san is bad enough, but at least he has some control over his perverted side thanks to Rin.ne. Chan. So, where is our Baka-sensei, Yugi? Chan? Did he irritate the elderly man once more? The Nibi container shrugs when he asks her. He most likely did, knowing him. Mei-san Kiri is still engaged in combat, isn't that correct? The dual bloodline wielder nods in response to Yugito's question. I'm afraid so. We're gradually losing the battle, but I'm on the rebel side. The bloodline purge just happened out of nowhere, she concluded, drawing wide eyes from everyone but Naruto and Shinku, who already knew that Yagura the Yondaime Mizukage is a Jinchuriki of the Sanbi no Onikame. He wanted to purify, not only water country but also the other elementals because he thinks that bloodlines are the cause of our constant conflict. As she saw pictures of dead children, she remarked, he's even having the shinobi kill even children. The only thing I could think of is to ask the Raikage for assistance, but I'm afraid that it would start another great shinobi war, she said, causing everyone's eyes to widen in shock that a cage would do such a thing. She concluded, we had another container for the Rokubi no Namakuji, but he vanished after the civil war began. Following a brief period of silence, Kushina said, I understand. I would certainly assist you, as would my friends and kids. In fact, my son holds the Kyuubi no Kitsune, and we also have two of my very strong students, Sharingan no Kakashi, and another student of my late husband who is as skilled in medicine as Tsunade. Mai gave her a wide-eyed look as she spoke. Then Yugito raised his voice. I'm the container for the Nibi no Nekomata and the Raikage's younger brother is the container for the Hachibi no Kyogyu. We are the guardians of Kaminari no Kuni, she continued. Naruto and Yugito nod in agreement as she asks, you two along with the Raikage's brother are Jinchuriki? We can each control the power of our Biju and Naruto-kun here is the youngest of us, Yugito replied. I see. If you all could help me save our village and country I'd be forever in your debt, she replied. The Med Kunoichi nodded and stood up when Kushina said, no problem. Rin, would you be so kind and show Mei to one of the guest rooms? I'm sure she would love to take a shower and change into some comfortable clothes. Mei gets up and follows her upstairs after she says, follow me, Mei-san. Yugito then showed up next to Naruto, smiling and encircling him with her arms. She smiles as she asks, so are we going to go out for sushi or do I need to tell your mom that you pinched my ass earlier? Whoops, I just did. Naruto gives her a glare but goes pale, slowly turning his head to see his mother surrounded by a sinister aura. He began to perspire profusely, and before Kushina could intervene, Naruto seized Yugito's shoulder and shushed him from the house. Anko smiles as Yugo and Shinku chuckle lightly. Anko asks her teacher, you're not gonna kill your only son are you sensei? And the teacher sighs in frustration. She mutters as she reclines on the couch, no, but I can beat the shit out of him later. I never should have let Kakashi give Naruto the talk. Kushina falls to the ground as Yugo perspires. Anko says, you really need to relax sensei and find yourself a boyfriend soon or you're gonna go nuts from the lack of sexual activity. However, Kushina leapt to her feet and gave her student a fierce glare as Shinku collapsed to the ground, laughing uncontrollably. When Anko paused and went pale, she smirked and said, you can't have Dango for 2 weeks because of that comment. Anko's cry, no, reverberated throughout Kumo, making many people pause and consider who was in pain at the moment. At the moment, Anko was sobbing uncontrollably in a corner while Shinku laughed. As Yugo patted a sobbing Anko on the back, Shinku said, you should learn to keep your mouth shut Anko. Well I'm gonna go change Ka-san. Shinku then went upstairs. Later that evening everyone in the compound was asleep in their rooms, but 8 shadows wearing blank masks with the kanji "ne" on them were scuttling through the building's roof. While the other 3 nodded, one Rudanbu commanded, Danzo. Sama's orders are to capture the girl and kill the Kyuubi boy. Stay quiet and alert because there are 4 A and 1 S ranked shinobi in the compound. They divided into 2 groups after opening a sunroof and silently jumping into the hallway. In the meantime, Naruto was asleep in his room when his eyes suddenly opened to reveal the Sharingan glowing in the moonlight. After carefully opening a door on the right, Team 1 discovered a room with a person sleeping in the bed. When the 2 root members realized it was one of their targets, they slowly approached and drew their tantos. The leader lifted his tanto and immediately removed the cover, but the body vanished and was replaced by a white glow producing seal. A shock of electricity rushed through the root members' bodies before they could react, causing them to collapse and scream in agony as their bodies jerked and twitched. Naruto showed up with his Sharingan glowing in the dark and only a pair of black cargo pants. After that, he called forth 2 clones and instructed them to restrain the 2 drones. His eyes widened as the house rocked and there was an explosion. Naruto exclaimed, "What the hell? Aw shit Shinku," before abruptly turning away. Outside the structure, smoke rose from the explosion that took place on the compound's eastern side. 4 black blurs chased after a red blur that jumped out of the smoke and into the forest. Shinku was holding her bleeding arm tightly as she leapt through the treetops. She suddenly stopped on a tree limb and flipped off of it when a barrage of kunai went right after her. She landed on the ground and sped away into the forest. 2 additional root anbu jumped from the trees and pursued her. Why did those guys attack me, and who the hell are they? As she accelerated her pace, she thought. Her eyes widened as she sped past a tree and noticed an exploding tag glow. Shit. She slammed her hands on the ground and did a few hand seals, causing a wall of earth to materialize in front of her. Shinku was sent flying backwards when another explosion happened, but the force behind it was so great that it turned the wall into rubble. She fell backwards a few times after hitting the ground abruptly. She jumped back onto her feet and headed for the lake. She did some hand seals and jumped on top of it. She exclaimed, "Sweden! Swijin heki!" And a wall of water encircled her as water drills erupted all around her. The water wall fell when the technique was finished, but nobody was visible. On top of the lake, 2 root anbu emerged and surveyed the area. Looking around, one root asks, "Where did she go?" The second responded, "She couldn't have escaped. We would have sensed her chakra by now." A green frog emerges from the water at the lake's edge and swims slowly toward the shore. As the root anbu search for Shinku, it hops out of the lake and crawls away into the forest. It leaps away from the area for a while, then pauses and opens its mouth slowly. A hand emerges from the toad's mouth, followed by an entire arm, a head covered in red hair, and finally a body. Shinku was on his knees, panting, when the toad vanished in a cloud of smoke. "It's only a matter of time before they find me. I better head back to the..." A voice behind her said, "Shinku." She instinctively drew a kunai and swung it in the direction of the dark figure, but he stopped her wrist. As she struggled to kick him in the side, he grabbed her leg and pinned her to the ground. Naruto said, exposing his face to her, "Imouto, chill, it's me." She began to say, Aniki, what the hell is going on and who are those?" But he covered her mouth and made a finger-shushing motion. He got off her and gestured with his hand to follow her, saying, "Quiet. Those masked ninja are still searching for you." But then a kunai walked by him and got stuck in a tree. When Naruto and Shinku look up, 2 root anbu are seen descending from the trees toward them while brandishing their blades. Like Shinku, Naruto curses because he left his kunai at the compound. When the drones landed where they had been, they leapt backwards and charged at the siblings. They swung their blades at the Namikaze twins' heads as they got closer. Ducking, Naruto seizes the root anbu's wrist. Naruto positions the tanto and thrusts it into the nin's heart, killing him instantly as he twists it forcefully and hears a snapping sound from the drone's wrist. After throwing the lifeless body aside, Naruto watches as Shinku attacks the other root ninja with a flurry of blows. She then gives the ninja a hard kick to the masked face, shattering it and knocking him unconscious as the drone crashes into a tree. Naruto yells as his eyes enlarge. The girl said, "Shinku, duck," as she hit nothing but air with a tanto. With a whirling ball of chakra in his hand, Naruto emerges before the startled root ninja. "Rasengan!" Naruto exclaimed as he killed the root ninja and helped Shinku stand again by slamming his father's technique into the nin's stomach and sending him hurtling through 3 trees and a boulder. At that moment, they heard a spine tingling scream and the chirping of 1,000 birds. Kakashi shows up with blood on his right hand. Shinku runs to the man and says, "Kakashi.ni.san." Kakashi asks, "Are you two okay?" as Naruto appears beside his sister. "We're fine. What about Ka.san and the others? They didn't get caught in the explosion, did they?" Naruto inquires. Kakashi approaches the corpse of a root anbu and removes the mask, saying, "No, they didn't. But we dealt with the others." When he sees the kanji for ne on it, his normally open eye narrows. Kakashi removed the mask and muttered, "So Danzo is behind this. I should have known." Although Shinku doesn't see her brother's Sharingan flash in the dark, it eventually fades. "Isn't he the cripple that mom that wanted to have me and Naruto.ni turned into a breeding factory?" she asks. Kakashi flicks the blood from his arm and nods. "Sadly, yes. The 2 elders as well as the civilians wanted to turn you both into their personal playthings, but our mother retaliated and killed several members as well as sent Danzo to the hospital. The rest you already know," he said as Shinku worked on her arm. As Naruto nods, she remarked, "To think our 2.san sacrificed his life for those ungrateful bastards." Yeah, but at least we'll be able to carry on his legacy even if we aren't a part of that village. I'm sure he'd be proud of us, Shinku-chan. Naruto replied. Kakashi nodded in agreement and grinned. Kakashi said, well, let's clean up this mess and head back to the compound. They then used water jutsu and a Kaiden to dispose of the bodies before returning. Kushina, Rin, Anko, Yugo, and Mei were back at the compound, outside the partially demolished living quarters. Rin was tending to Anko's burn injuries while Yugo and Mei used some sweetened jutsus to put out the fire. On the other hand, Kushina was furious and had a barely conscious Root Nin by the collar. She has already slain 2 of the Root Nin who attempted to flee, but she kept one alive to obtain information from him. She shook the drone violently and yelled, "Listen here, you bastard. You better tell why you attacked us and why my children are missing right now before I send you back to your master in pieces." Naruto remarked, "He won't talk, Ka-san." After dropping the man, Kushina noticed her kids and Kakashi approaching them. She embraced the 2 children she had brought into the world in a flash of rage. As they gave her a hug in return, she exclaimed with relief, "Naruto, Shinku, oh thank Kami, you 2 are okay." Naruto reassured his mother, "We're fine, Ka-san." She let them go after noticing that Shinku's arm was slightly bandaged. As the younger redhead examined it, Kushina said anxiously, "Shinku, your arm." As Naruto approached the barely conscious Root Ninja and slammed his foot into his face, knocking him out, she responded, "I got hit by some of the debris, Ka-san, that's all." After dragging the Nei agent in the direction of his mother, he puts him down, tears off the mask, and pries open his mouth. This confuses Kushina and Hikari until Naruto slightly extracts his tongue. Like I said earlier, Ka-san, you won't get any info from these guys. These Juin marks keep them from talking about Danzo or his operations. If they do, then the mark instantly activates and their body freezes up instantly. Naruto clarified as their eyes widened. "Sochi, how do you know so much about seals? I mean, I know Jiraiya taught you and Shinku the aspects of Fuinjutsu and how to use them properly, but I honestly didn't think you'd get this far," she inquired. On the other hand, Naruto grinned. He replied, "Dad's intellect rubbed off on me." However, that's when Ii and a group of his Anbu showed up. As the Anbu and Kakashi went to assist Yugo and Mei in extinguishing the fire, he demanded, "Kushina, what the hell happened here? I could practically see the smoke coming from your home from the tower." After brushing her hair back, Kushina raised her voice. The man's eyes widened in surprise as she responded, "We were attacked by some ninja from Konoha. But they're not any of Sarutobi's men. They belong to a man named Danzo." Ii's expression was bewildered until Naruto interrupted. Naruto replied, "He's the Teme I told you about that forced us to leave Konoha." "I see. Are any of his men alive?" he inquires. In front of Ii, Naruto raised a Root Nin that was unconscious. As the man nods and snaps his fingers, 2 Anbu appear at attention. Naruto said, "This one is Sensei, but he has a Juin seal that keeps him from talking about his master, so you'll need to contact Ero Kyofu and have him take a look at it. You 2 take this man to the Anbu holding cells until Jiraiya Sama returns and have him searched for any form of weapon as well as suicidal pills." He gave the order. With a nod, the masked nin seized the Root Nin and disappeared. Naruto asks his mother, "How are the others, Ka-san?" Anko-chan, Yugo-chan, Mei-chan, and Rin-chan are all fine, Sochi, though we're gonna have to stay in an apartment complex until the compound is fixed." She continues and turns to Ii. She bowed, "Raikage. Sama, I'm sorry that this incident occurred." He waved it off, blinking in bewilderment. He growled and then shunshins away, just like the other Anbu. "There is no need for you to apologize, Kushina-chan. Konoha in a sense are responsible for this incident, and I assure you that I will be getting an explanation from the old monkey about this. He seriously needs to put his subordinates on a tighter leash." With a sigh, Kushina smooths back her hair. She muttered, "Why can't those bastards just leave us alone?" Naruto scowled and vowed to murder Danzo and his henchmen. He refused to allow that man to ruin his family. He clenched his fists in rage and said, "Just you wait, Danzo. Teme. The next time we meet, I will shove a rakery into your chest and rip your vile heart out."
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.